Good evening and welcome to the Glendale Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Thursday, October the 19th. In compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act of, nope, that's not the right one. I'm going to start over. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and ATTUverse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, iOS, and Android devices using a free app called Cablecast and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For program schedules, please call 818-548-4013. For public comments and questions during the meeting, call 818-937-8100. That's the number on your screen. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. If you have any questions about matters on the agenda or requests for assistance, please contact the city clerk at 818-548-2090 during regular business hours. May we have roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Paul? Here. Commissioner Yurka?
Here.
Commissioner Doom?
Here.
Chair Cognati?
Here.
All present?
Thank you. The agenda of the October 19, 2023 regular meeting of the Glendale Historic Preservation Commission was posted on October 16, 2023 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Can we discuss the minutes?
Do you have any?
Any questions about the minutes? Any corrections on the minutes? If not, can I?
Missed you.
Yes, thank you.
And did Shanaz leave the minutes up there with you?
I don't have them.
Okay, well, we'll work that out. So.
Okay, great. Did anybody read them?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, sorry. Does anybody have any corrections or anything from them?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve them?
I move to approve. I move to approve.
May I have a second?
A second.
Great. Roll call, please.
I'm still not sure we need to roll call for minutes, but let's just do it for fun.
I think it's a meeting I wasn't at, so I should
Figure it out at some point. But,
But we always have.
Commissioner Paul?
Yes.
Commissioner Doom?
Yes.
Commissioner Yurka?
Yes.
Chair Cognati?
I believe I was not at that meeting, so I'll abstain.
All right. So.
But it looked like a great one. Okay, we are going to jump to item number 4, oral communications. We do have one speaker card. Rick Stern. Thank you. If you don't mind stating your name when you get to the podium.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes.
My name is Rick Stern. Good evening, Historical Preservation Commission members. I live in the Verdugo Woodlands. My question is brief. Regarding the application for the Self-Esteem Verdugo Historic District, when will the presentation of the nomination to HPC to review and authorize a survey occur? Thank you.
That's
all
your
I'm
only
asking.
question?
That's it.
That was brief. Thank you.
Let's see if Jay is in a place to answer that.
I am not. We don't know yet.
I'm sure you will be made aware when it is, but as you know, the process has many steps, and I just don't think he's quite ready for that.
You will get public notice, so
How will I get the public notice?
via mail.
Yeah, email?
Why don't you stand here at the podium while we're still talking?
Yeah,
Rick,
please stand at the
Can you
microphone.
stand at the podium for us? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everyone who owns property and everyone who's a resident in the boundary of the historic district plus a buffer around the district will get a notice that there's a public hearing, and you will possibly get 2 notices if you are both an owner and a resident. So
So the public hearing is next, or is that part of the survey?
it's part of the process for designation. The survey comes later.
I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay, we have no other oral communications cards. We'll move on to item number 5, board or commissioner member comments.
I have 2 comments. One is that I wanted to congratulate Adrian Scott Fine, who was just named the president and CEO of the LA Conservancy, which is the most important grassroots preservation organization in Southern California and one of the most important in the country. And I've known Adrian for a long time, and I think he will do an outstanding job. The other comment I wanted to make is that I was included in an email chain with some distressing news about an illegal demolition of a, what is likely a contributing resource to the pending Bellhurst Historic District at 1239 North Everett. And I know that there's a chance that this could come to us, and so we can't have a discussion of it, but I just wanted to express my concern and communicate the concern of a number of residents in that district.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. I would like.
On that note, staff is very concerned too. This will be our first test of our new demolition, left that running, our new, newish demolition deterrence policy, so.
Great.
Thank you.
I just have a couple things I want to say. If you are watching this broadcast, then chances are, I'm going to put on my glasses. This font's a little small. If you're watching this broadcast, then chances are you have been following the recent City Council vote to implement a streamlined historic district application process, and at the same time, I know, it was pretty exciting, wasn't it? And at the same time, codified the continued use of a 50+1 threshold of petition signatures to bring the proposed district before the council for vote. What should have been a simple discussion turned into another debate about the idea of historic districts in general. I'd like to take this opportunity to clear up a couple of points made by a couple of council members during these discussions. First is related to the sorts of restrictions that historic districts put on the properties within them. One council person, either purposefully or by accident, misinformed the public by stating that historic districts deny the ability of a property owner to add a second story to their home. That is absolutely not true. I was on the commission a few years ago when we approved the addition of a second story to a contributing Spanish-style home in the Cumberland Heights Historic District on Cleveland Road. Historic district guidelines do not prevent the addition of a second story. However, it does, in a similar way to design review, afford the city the opportunity to guide the design to ensure it is sensitive to the resource it is modifying. My second point relates to the idea that somehow historic districts increase property values and thereby reduce housing affordability. You can search online and find arguments on both sides regarding whether historic districts add or detract from the value of a home. There are equal numbers of people interested in owning a home in an historic district as there are people who do not want to own a home in an historic district. But I can tell you as a real estate broker that it is only one minor aspect of a home that affects its value. Overall location, the condition of the home, the condition of the neighborhood as a whole, these are all things that affect the value of a property more than whether it is in an historic district. But I want to dive deeper a little bit into the discussion about affordable housing. The council person who expressed frustration that historic districts prevent homeowners from making modifications, such as additions to their home, is the same one that made the argument about affordable housing. Here's the problem I have with those two arguments. They counter each other. The affordability of a house has less to do with its location in or out of an historic district as it does with its overall size and bed and bathroom count. If a homeowner expands their 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,500 square foot home to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot home, the value of that property goes up quite a bit. What was once an entry-level home for a family is no longer that, and the city has just lost another of its more affordable houses. So if that council person is genuinely concerned that historic districts discourage property owners from making significant modifications to their homes that ultimately result in them getting larger, then they should see that deterrence as a benefit in terms of affordable housing. The fewer, smaller, entry-level homes we have, the less affordable the ones that remain become. It's simply supply and demand. I'm encouraged that the system has been streamlined and that the 50% plus one threshold is in place, but another member of the council made it pretty clear that they would not feel comfortable voting to implement an historic district if a 67% threshold of signatures was not met, and it takes 4 council votes to implement a district. So those of you hitting the pavement gathering signatures moving forward should consider working extra hard to get those numbers up. Okay. Any other comments, anyone? No? Okay. Thanks. Moving on to item number, I know, it's crazy. Item number 6, old business.
Before we do that, I recommend, since we have someone in the audience, that maybe we jump to 7A.
Okay.
Since that's being continued.
Oh, yes, you're right. Thank you. We do have one speaker card for item 7A, and item 7A is actually going to be continued until the next meeting, but you mentioned you just had a quick question. So why don't you come up, Donald, if you don't mind, and ask your question, and we'll see if we can answer it for you. Thanks, Jay. If you don't mind stating your name when you get to the podium, thank you.
Donald Barlow.
Hi, Donald.
Hi. My question was just, is there some rendering of the proposed addition? And is it going to allow rental, or what's it for?
Those are good questions. Jay?
When we're ready to bring this back to the commission, there'll be a full drawing set that includes renderings and architectural drawings. So you'll have access to that online, and you'll be able to review it, and then come back here and comment if you have any concerns or questions.
On November 16th.
In terms of the plan, it's for an addition to the existing house, not for an additional unit.
Okay,
Before you step away, how did you hear about tonight's meeting?
saw the sign.
Okay, so 1 week before the meeting that it will be presented at, which I guess is next month, all of the
Theoretically, we will bring it back next month if they're ready. We'll
Okay.
hear it.
So a lot of this has to do with the readiness of the applicant. So if the applicant is ready for our next meeting, 1 week before that meeting, all the materials will be presented online that you can download and review. The easiest way to find those, I have found, is you just Google City of Glendale agendas, and it'll pull up the webpage. It's going to have every commission meeting there is. You've just got to find the one that says historic preservation, and there'll be a couple of links next to that where you can download all of that information that goes up about a week before the meeting.
Very good.
The one thing you should know is you won't get another mailing, but I am going to ask, once we know the date, I'm going to ask the applicant to change the date on the 2 signs that they put up, so.
Yeah, once we know the date is certain, he'll ask
I
them to do
don't
that.
think I received a mail notice
Do you live close by?
next door.
You should have received a notice then.
Well,
Okay.
when would I have received it?
I don't know, but
Okay.
I will double check, but I do know that one of our staff did mail out notice or arrange for
Well, I
notices.
could have received it. I was out of town until about a week ago.
Right,
My mail was being held for me, but I didn't see it. But
okay.
Jay, does the city use the tax rolls for their mailing address, or does your tax bill come to your house, or does it come to? Okay, so then it should have come to the house. Maybe it's somewhere buried in there. It
the
says City of
sign-
Glendale on it. Maybe they're just throwing it out.
the sign only went up 2 days ago, and it said October 19th.
Okay,
So
interesting.
I would have thought they would have known by then that.
Yeah. Well, look out for something maybe in the mail. It's still coming, but also maybe a week before the meeting next month. Just take a look for those online
do that.
materials.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming tonight. See you next month, hopefully. Okay, item 6A, we're going to back up, old business. I actually have to recuse myself from this item because I live a block away from this house, so I'm going to pass the veritable gavel over to Vice Chair, Commissioner Doom. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, are you going to switch seats? Or?
No, you're going to stay where you are. I'm just going to go in the back.
Oh, okay.
I think Mr. Doom's students probably enjoy the idea that you are vice commissioner.
Yes. I'm vice. I want to say that too loud. All right. So for item 6A, the address of 326 North Maryland Avenue, a Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application. Is there an applicant present, Jay?
Yes.
Okay.
No. You'll come up later. so.
Okay. All right. Do you want to present your report?
Sure. So we're looking here at the Craftsman House at 1326 North Maryland. It's kind of a special Craftsman House. You can see that it's here in the Casa Verdugo Historic District. And here's Alfred Priest, Glendale's most important early architect. Did a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, I think one of these pictures is wrong, but he did the Seeley's building, but not, in fact, all of these pictures we shouldn't be talking about. But he did the Tuesday Afternoon Club that was torn down. He did the original Seeley's building before it was remodeled the way it looks here. He did the Security Trust Tower at Broadway and Brand, and many, many major buildings throughout the city and in other areas too. So the house was built in 1913, so early craftsmen for us. And it's fun that we have 2 craftsmen that are two meetings in a row. So we don't always get these things coming our way. This is an interesting house. It's got lots of great detail, especially when you look at these rafter ends, the beam ends, and the just the level of detail. The brickwork is lovely. It's got a great shingle pattern. Unfortunately, someone in the past put a texture coat on these shingles that is really a nightmare. Can't be removed. So one of the conditions that the applicant plans to follow through on is to replace the shingles. And she has found matching shingles at one of the local specialty lumber yards. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get a very close match to do that work. Just touring around the exterior, the porch is the original concrete porch. It's in pretty good shape. It had a paint coating put on it, but that's not super unusual. Brickwork's in pretty good shape. There's a few areas where it'll need some repair. The front doors are great. These big side lights, the segmental arch over the glazed openings is kind of unusual, but certainly original to this house. Coming around over to the side, we're still on the front facade, left side, right side, although reversed as you see it. It's got some interesting, not additions, pieces coming off of it. Some may be older additions that we don't have record of. When we come around to the back of the house, there have been some alterations, and we have some conditions to remedy, not all of them. So for example, on the upper right, you see an addition bump out on the house that's clad in, I can't remember the material, it's either wood or synthetic wood. Obviously, in addition, the sliding door is infilling an opening that was brought to the back. And here's that addition I just mentioned with the different siding. Does look like it's probably wood. Some stained glass windows that are interesting and look like they could be right, but they're also kind of unusual, and I just can't say. So staff recommends that we just let those lie, and we just won't know for sure. But even if you look at the attic vent over here, the attic vent on the back of the house is just fantastic. I haven't seen that kind of detail on most of those. Really nice garage, a large garage in poor condition, structural issues apparent, so we have a condition to discuss that. And it looks like we don't have a slide. There's an area that was infilled, and it could be where these doors are. There was kind of what we think was a mud room that was either screened or open to the exterior that was enclosed. I think that's what's happening where this sliding door is. So we have a recommendation to replace that door, but just with wood doors that are appropriate to the style, since we don't know exactly what was going on there. There are a few windows that will need to be replaced, and we have conditions for those. You can see one of them here. Actually, on the addition, I'm not sure that we're recommending that one. I think behind the leaves of this plant in the right-hand picture, you can see a replaced window on the house. And we have some louvered windows, I think, over here on the left. We saw the garage already. Here's a close-up of the texture coat, which really is a real shame because the shingles look to be in somewhat good condition, which could be partly because the texture coat did protect them and now it's failing, but that's another story. There's an arrow on the top left. I think Casey, we didn't talk about Casey. We need to do that, so we'll do that at the end. There's a missing portion of that one beam end coming out from the gable there. The awnings are not original. We're recommending that they be replaced, removed. There's some wood deterioration, a little bit of missing brick at the corner of the pier here, some pointing that needs to be done for the mortar. Here's a shot of these windows that we already talked about. And so staff is recommending that this be designated. You did receive in the package that was sent out to you originally one comment letter from the public that was questioning whether this was the right move for this property at this time. But staff believes that it is clearly eligible for the register. And the applicant has indicated that they will be fulfilling all of these conditions. So I'll just read them out loud so it's in the record. The exterior shingles will be replaced with new wood shingles to match. The louver windows on the north facade and the non-original vinyl window at the southeast corner will be replaced with appropriate wood windows. The vinyl, which I believe is aluminum sliding door at the east facade, will be replaced probably with French doors, I would imagine would be the best way to go there. Or perhaps even single light doors, since this house doesn't have divided light windows. Repointing at the brick on the entry porch as needed. and that would include the brick repair where there was the missing piece. We do recommend that the owner talk to a structural engineer since we don't have that expertise. The garage does look like it's got some issues, but regardless, the garage will be restored in terms of its exterior envelope when the shingles are replaced, and there is a plan to put a new roof on the house, which will just be an asphalt shingle roof.
On the house or garage, or both?
Both, yeah. The missing, or the portion of the beam at the porch gable will be replaced, and any other wood rot will be repaired, and the awnings will be removed. So that's my presentation, if you have any questions.
I have one quick one, Jay. What is the present roof shingle today? Is it
I think it's asphalt
it's
shingles.
asphalt also. Can we look at a picture?
I don't honestly remember. I don't think it's rolled roofing. If you give me a minute, I could pull up an
Maybe it's in the
aerial.
maybe it's in the nomination.
I don't know that it
The owner will know
is.
when the address is.
Strangely, we don't have. Let me just pull up an aerial real quick.
Okay.
It looks like shingle.
Okay. Thanks. That's it. Thank you.
What is the time frame to make all these accommodations?
That
Do we wanna
is
give
your
them-
decision.
Our decision?
Yeah, I would recommend one of the longer timeframes because of the extent of the work and the uncertainty about the garage. And if you want to do multiple timeframes for some of the easier work in a shorter timeframe and maybe the shingles in a longer timeframe. But that's your decision.
Okay. Commissioner Yerka, any questions for our staff?
Are the shingles cedar?
I believe so, yeah.
That would be
That's what they found at Ganal. You can ask the applicant,
Okay,
but
okay.
I believe they're cedar.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Without any further questions, it is time for the applicant to come forward now. Please state your full name, and let's hear your presentation.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Stasuk, and we purchased this home a little over a year ago. We'd been looking for too long, way too long, kept walking into homes, and we wanted something that was unique. And we fell in love with the home because it was as original as we could find a home without being but it was daunting. The fact that it needed so much work was and is frightening. It's a competitive market. It was back then, and part of the promise that we had made to the owner at the time was that we would maintain the home, preserve it, and restore it. And that's also why she took our offer that was lower than other offers, believe it or not by much, but it's all that we could afford. They lived in the home for 60 years, and our plan was to do similar. Yeah, 60 years. And aside from the addition, and I think they did the stucco, because from the things that they had inside, their taste wasn't the greatest. So I think they did the stucco inside. The addition, definitely, they did do that. But they didn't make very many changes, which was hard to find because everybody tends to alter things to their needs. And they kept a lot inside as well as you can see on the outside. They have pocket doors and lovely things like that. And I grew up in Glendale. I grew up in South Glendale. So we used to go trick-or-treating in Rosmoyne. Wealthy people have better candy. So my parents used to take us up to Rosmoyne and to Brand Park. And when we were able to buy a home in this neighborhood, I just really, really wanted to see the Glendale that I grew up with. And slowly, it just seems to be changing. So if I could do my part with one home that could maintain it, and I know that that's a completely difficult task because my husband and I left the country for 10 years and we spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe for school, for his work, spent some time in Italy, and just the way it happened to be, it was always in old flats, 1920s flats, 1911 flats. And in Bologna in Italy, that's what they do. They restore old flats. They keep them. They don't tear them down. They don't change the windows. They paint the windows. They putty the windows. They live with the draft of an old window. So we, over the years, have accepted it and have always done that where we could. In the flat that my parents had owned overseas, we did similar. We didn't change out the windows. We fixed the windows and we kept the wood. And so it's a big project. Nothing we've done like similar to this before, but it means a lot. It means a lot because I grew up in Glendale, because I want to see homes like this, because I think that they're not appreciated, because I think everybody just likes new and shiny these days. So we throw out the old and we bring in something that's easier. I mean, it's easier to put in a vinyl door and just to like have it custom made, as opposed to find somebody that'll make you a wood frame or crafter or welder. So that's why we bought the home. I was told that the shingles are redwood, so that's why they've kept up fairly well. And it's not as hard. Like at first I thought it was Anawalt Lumber in Pasadena has them. And there are other places actually in North Hollywood that have them as well. They sell them by the bundle. The roof is asphalt shingle. There's no rolled roof on the home. The garage, so I think within the last year, the granddaughter has come to visit us twice in the home. And believe it or not, this is just a side point just to see how crazy people are. She's tattooed the address along the side of her thorax. So she loved this home, and which is why she comes back and she wants to make sure that her carpeting is still purple. We haven't pulled it up. We will at one point because the wood floors are there, and I'm going to hate to break it to her, but it's just going to happen. But the grandparents were really odd people. They were hoarders, and there was a lot of stuff in the garage, and you could see the garage from the bedroom where the grandfather was. So he wouldn't let things come out of the garage. They didn't fix the garage because of all the things that needed to be moved, which means that it leaked and leaked and leaked. And so the wood rotted. So it didn't slope or dip or anything like that. It's just that there's just holes in the roof of that, which if it were anything structural, we that's beyond a point where my husband and I, or because at that point, I don't know, specialists obviously that's part of what they do, but from the understanding that we have of how they lived and the kind of people that they were, that was why the garage didn't get touched. But the rest of the home was re-roofed with asphalt shingle, a color I don't like. It's gray, so I don't know exactly how to match it with what else, but if it's changed, it's changed, so that's a moot point. But that's why they took pretty good care of the rest of the home, I'd like to say. But the garage did get a lot of deferred maintenance, unfortunately, because they didn't want to move the things out of it and to work on fixing the leaking roof. So it just kept doing damage.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Schick?
Yeah. So you're planning to get redwood shingles then to replace? Okay. And the other question is, I was a little confused about what you were saying about the garage. Have you had a structural engineer look at it yet? Because you seem to be indicating it's not structural problems, it's the roof.
We've had someone come out to look at it, but we haven't, he hasn't formalized his conclusion, so I don't have them to present. And we've kind of been pulling teeth to get it from him, so I might have to go to somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that was our concern at the time, and that was also part of the inspections that were presented to us in terms of when we bought the home. She has had it earthquake proofed, and along the basement it's been I don't know how to describe it because this isn't my area of expertise, but she's had the home with metal bolting to the foundation. Yeah, I don't know the technical term for it. So they did it, that kind of maintenance, that level, they were careful to do that. And that's why we actually proceeded to buy the home. but I don't have it in writing. I don't have his inspection writing to present today, unfortunately.
Because it seems that there's the potential of needing to replace the garage in kind.
Replace it?
Well,
Okay.
if it depends on the extent of the structural problems, right? I mean,
I didn't think it looked that far
Okay.
gone, but that's always a possibility. So.
okay. I mean, it's only if it's needed, but that
Okay.
would be part of the engineer's report. Okay.
I know Commissioner Paul has a dying question to ask about the garage.
What's that?
What's your, because I want to ask it too, so go ahead, ask your question about the garage.
Oh,
I'm curious as well.
we were just, this is a hugely significant question, so get ready. We were just curious to know what he was hoarding in the garage.
Everything from, these people were wacky. Everything from oxygen tanks, so he needed those. He was pushing 80 and he was pretty sick too. It was kind of looted before we got there. I guess a neighbor had the keys, so a lot of the good stuff was already taken out, to be honest. He was a smart man though. Before like video cameras and these whole Google cameras were implemented, he sold a business. So they weren't, and that we figured out much later. I mean, they were quite well to do, and they suffered a tragedy. Their son had passed away. And but everything from like printing not business cards, like name tags for companies, for employees. He had one of those kinds of machines. So nothing like worth putting on eBay.
Interesting.
But I think it was just things in general that I've noticed with my own parents, that people tend to be more and more. And I try to catch myself now. It's like, oh God, I'm getting older and I don't want to get rid of things. But it's always, I'll use it later, and we don't.
Well, you have a nice garage back there if you need to start hoarding.
Right now, we can't use it. So
Okay.
it's leaking.
Okay.
And yeah, we need to prevent further damage to it.
All right.
We're just wondering what was damaged in the leaks? Why would you store so much stuff that would just be destroyed with the water?
Tarps. They used a lot of tarps.
The tarps over ice.
So they
Oh, okay.
tarped and tarped everything. When we moved in, it was just tarps on top of items, anything from a wheelbarrow to these oxygen tanks, which I still don't know how to dispose of or what to do with, so they're still in there. Yeah, they put tarps and covered it up. There was actually covered part of it with a door. I guess he was creative that way. Yeah, I haven't gone up there, but the granddaughter was brutally honest, or just too generous with the information that she gave us. Yeah.
So with the changes you have to make to the house and to the garage, what time frame would you like, based on, I'm going to suggest with the engineer from the garage will take longer. So it was in 2 phases of years. But with the estimate of the materials for the shingles, what is your time frame, you think, for the changes to the structure of the house?
So that's a good question, and I think that I would say that the most you can give us, and the focus here I think would be on the garage, because it is deteriorating. Like, the more water damage it gets, the more wood is going to be impacted. And fortunately, the windows aren't along the windows, which we plan to maintain, and the door, there's a little door on the side of the garage door. But the garage door itself, the wood, like where the bolts come into the garage beam, the wood won't hold the bolts for the door anymore. So the house doesn't leak inside at all. There are no issues with that. Like I said, they were always really good at getting the meat on the table, so to speak, but the potatoes, they never really cared to take care of those. So our focus would be that. And in terms of a time frame, I really don't know what the committee offers. I mean, is 2 years, I would definitely say that the garage within a year, but that also depends on the approval process, I guess, and the...
Okay, so just thinking out loud, nothing definite, and a dialogue of perhaps a recommendation.
This is something that should be discussed after you finish with the speaker?
But if we did, then we had to call her back up. Could we just-
That's fine, but
Okay,
it is
call her back up
it is
later.
the commission's job to establish a timeline.
Okay.
And the applicant can let us know visually if if that doesn't make sense
Okay.
to them.
Some number
Hopefully, she
cues.
has budgeted what the shingles might cost.
Shingles are pricey. They're $250 for 15
Hopefully, she has
bundles.
budgeted the cost of the shingles as well as the number of shingles needed as well as her budget
Mm-hmm.
so that she has an idea if a timeline that you present will be adequate or not. The thing the applicant should know is that we do not extend timelines over a long period of time. So why don't we
Okay, we'll work
let
with
you
that.
guys deliberate about what an appropriate timeline is and then.
Okay,
Any further questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
thank
very
you.
much. We don't have any cards for this nomination. Do we have any telephone calls?
No calls.
No calls, okay. Now it is time for a discussion amongst ourselves. Anyone wish to comment on? Go ahead, Mr. Paulo.
I just need to mention that early in the process, when they were doing this application, I was approached to possibly work on this application, but that I ended up not working on the application, so I don't believe that I'm conflicted out in any way. But just to be above board, I wanted to mention that I was approached, and I did. That's when I saw the house at that time. So I did my tour of the house quite a while ago. The other thing I want to mention, since I have the mic, is correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, if you know, I mean, looking through the staff report, I went to the Brand Arts Library, and Martin Eli Weil had done a little sort of list of the work of Alfred Priest. Martin Eli was a very prominent sort of restorer of old houses back, you know, in the 80s or maybe even before here in Los Angeles.
He lived in a house with the original 1900-whatever kitchen. He was pretty intense.
Yes, yes, and I when I did the USC short course program in 1996, we went into his house, I think at that time, and according to what he listed for the Priest work, there was only one other house before this one listed from 1910. It's the Peterson residence on 125 Mountain, and I looked up that house, and that's a 1926 house now. So 125 East Mountain, 125 West Mountain is something new. After that, the next house listed is this one. And then there were two others of the same year, and both of those appear to be demolished from 1913. So this was listed as 1912, with a possibility of being done in 1913, residence for Mrs. Elliott B. Wyman. I know that the original house as proposed was slightly different than what ended up getting made. I think originally it was proposed as a two-story. And he mistakenly in here said that the house was gone, which it's not. It just doesn't look like it did in the LA Times. Based off this, and what I'm aware of, this might be the earliest Alfred Priest in Glendale, and possibly, you know, his second work and the earliest remaining Alfred Priest house in Glendale, which I think even adds to the significance even more if that's the case. So I wanted to mention that because I think that is quite special about this property. I mean, along with everything else that the slides speak for themselves. It's a striking property. The inside has a lot of very nice features as well. The garage is quite charming. Even one hopes it can be repaired. It's those peripheral features are very important to these craftsman houses. Sometimes I think it's a little sad when you see a perfectly restored house and then everything else around it looks brand new, or like, you know, it might as well be AstroTurf. But clearly, I think from what your presentation indicates, that's not what you want to do. You know, try to save as much as possible. And all in all, and as Jay mentioned, a quite special house with these almost chalet-like details, quite special. And I'm really, it was a delight to walk through it. And I think I find this house to be special in a lot of ways. Thank you.
So I also visited the house the last time. It was during our hours. I knocked on the door, no one answered, so I just helped myself and walked around it. And I agree, this is, I mean, Alfred Priest, I was on the board of the Glendale Historical Society for a few years, and Alfred Priest is just such an important architect in Glendale. And I do agree that it's extra special if this would be his oldest remaining house, but it's special regardless. And I agree that it's eligible for the Glendale Register under criterion 3. I do think in terms of I mean, we do need to figure out about the conditions. The one thing that I would just throw in is I agree, Jay, that the vinyl sliding door should be replaced with wood single light doors, because it is kind of striking that there are no multi-light windows on this property. So that's the suggestion that I would make. I do hope that the garage can be repaired, because that would be a big job to have to replace it in kind. In terms of the timeline for work, I do think that repairing the wood rot should be really kind of high on the list, and the missing beam. And then that would be, like, I would put that high up on the priority list, but other than that, we can talk about it.
I am glad to have a Ruth Priest house, one of the earliest ones, as a contributor. I think it's a great application, and I don't know if as a chair I can make the motion, but I can.
You cannot.
I can't, exactly. Didn't think I could.
Sorry.
So the time frame I was thinking about as a suggestion, I can contribute to that part of the conversation, is a year, and then report back in a year with what you've been able to accomplish and maybe what more you need to get done. No, Jay shaking his head. Okay.
If we have immediate repairs, as Commissioner Yurka mentioned, maybe we have a list of those that could be done within the first year. We generally don't stray too far beyond 3 years. We have been open to extending the deadline informally when we know someone's actively working on it, so there's a little wiggle room, but we don't want to have too much, especially in the initial goal of a timeline. So
3 years was what I was
3
thinking
years,
of.
I would
3 years
go.
overall? Okay.
But as we said, if you do 1 year to fix the wood, fix the brick, put new roof on the house, which isn't a condition we recommended, it's a plan that the owners have, but especially on the garage. But you don't want to re-roof a garage until you know what the conditions are. So maybe the garage inspection and re-roofing happens in the first year, and structural work. That's where we could have a little play in depending on what they find. But I wouldn't recommend that it come back to the commission. That's something we can handle. So
Okay.
Why is there why tier certain deadlines at all, and why not just give one deadline for everything? How come there's, what is the advantage of tiering deadlines?
we've done it commonly. Sometimes it's because of the financial burden the owner is going to experience, and they may need time to pull together funds. But as Kathy noted, if wood is rotting right now, it's going to get worse every day moving forward. So it's best to address that sooner, I would say. Best to put a roof on the garage as soon as possible. And that's the kind of thing, if the condition is to have the engineers report within 6 months, and then we can look at that, evaluate any issues. I haven't inspected, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert in this, but I haven't even been inside the garage to really look at it. It just looks from the outside like it really needs some work. Hopefully it is cosmetic. Hopefully it is fixing the roof and replacing the shingles. So
part of the reason of tiering the deadlines is to help them prioritize the aspects of the house that are of greater concern in terms of their stability and the threat to character defining features.
Protecting the resource.
Because what I was thinking is if financial is a potential problem, why not just give 3 years for everything, and then they have the flexibility and the range to go after what they can on their terms. We just trust that everything's going to be done in 3 years. Why tier
because
it?
of the deterioration issue, and it's common that we have had a tiered time frame.
Okay, so then the tiered timeframe, if we're going to do one, then it's kind of based off, okay, here's a couple of things that are in imminent danger, and let's prioritize those. Okay, that's fair. I got it. Thank you.
And I just made that up off the top of my head, but I kind of like the idea of getting the engineer sooner than later, fixing the rot within that first year, but the engineer even earlier, because then we could address, even if the roofing was done in 2 phases, and if you're not making the roof a condition, well, actually on the garage, you might want to make that a condition since we know it's an active problem. On the house, that could wait until they're ready to re-roof, and then we'll just roof the same way that we approved for the garage.
Yeah. I mean, assuming that the garage can be repaired, I would think that a re-roofing would be a good condition to have, given the problems that you're having with it.
Are there character-defining features on the house itself that need immediate attention?
Wood rot,
The wood rot?
yeah.
Okay.
The missing beam could be leaving something exposed that
Yeah.
shouldn't be, so.
So the elements that need immediate detention are the wood rot in the house, a missing beam, and then the other element that needs immediate attention or close to immediate is the situation with the garage. Getting a structural engineer out there as sooner rather than later, and then attending to the garage. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And other things, removing the non-original awnings, that could be done over the weekend. Why not just get that over with? And then the holes where they were attached could be repaired as part of this wood repair campaign. Repointing the brick, I would put in the early phase. The windows and the door could be in the 3-year phase. The shingles could be in the 3-year phase. The garage roof would be in the 1-year phase. And if you like the idea, putting a deadline for getting our heads around what the conditions are, I think a 6-month phase would hopefully work for that.
For the engineer. So you're proposing 6 months to get the structural engineer out there, and then 1 year for the wood rot on the house, repointing brick, and a missing beam, and addressing the garage, which I don't know specifically what that means, and then 3 years for everything else.
I'm going to do a read back like we always do. 6 months, assess garage. 1 year, repair the wood rot, repair the beam, repair the brick, remove the awnings, and put a new roof on the garage, with the caveat that that may be flexible depending on what the engineer's report tells us. And then the rest, including the shingles, the windows, and the sliding door, the new glazed doors, will be 3 years.
Do we need to add specific language into the conditions regarding specifically how they proceed relative to the engineer's finding on the garage?
There's too much uncertainty, I'd say no.
Okay.
And those conditions include repair of the garage door as well as the shingling.
Yeah, I don't think we put that in our staff conditions,
It should.
so we can add that,
yeah.
so.
Match the size, location, and design, so the design would be the door, the existing.
Okay, so we have we have 7 staff conditions. We are adding 2 conditions, one about the garage roof and one about the garage doors. And then we have a timeline that I just read back, so.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion from
Okay.
one of our 2 remaining commissioners.
I will move that the Historic Preservation Commission recommend that 1326 North Maryland Avenue be added to the Glendale Register under Criterion 3 and listed as the Wyman House. and that council approve a Mills Act contract with the conditions as stipulated.
Now, the tricky thing at this time of year, and council has been canceling a lot of meetings, I'm going to try my best to get this to council before December. And then we can actually have a contract signed by December 31st, which is a requirement. But some of that's out of our hands, so. But I think it'll work, so.
And I second.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Commissioner Yurka,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Doom.
Yes.
Great. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Love the brickwork. Glad it's not painted.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't
was a
texture
big
coat
plus.
that.
Big plus. Wonderful. And who is our sleepy? Ed?
For the benefit of those at home, they brought their 13-month-old and we're getting to know him. So,
With two of my own, I can tell you it's a lot of fun.
oh, I left my paper. Can I take that?
Yes, of course. Congratulations. Thank you.
You guys are free to go if you want, but if you want to
Yes.
linger, feel free.
So
Thank
happy
you.
to turn it back over to you, Commissioner Cagnati.
Thank you. Good job, guys. I missed the last few minutes. Did anybody mention to those, for the sake of the folks in the neighborhood that wrote the letter of concern about this house, I think it should be noted that this is exactly the reason we have a Mills Act process, wouldn't you say, Commissioner Yurka? That, this is exactly the reason we have a Mills Act process, so we can save these homes, and we're so lucky that folks in our neighborhood are so committed to that. So, anyway, congratulations. Moving on to item 7B, 1705 Rancho Avenue, design review of proposed additions.
All right, I've got a bunch of slides to help you understand this project. And then I also put all of the architectural drawings on slides. I'm not going to show them, but if we need them as the discussion moves forward, we will look at those. But this is a super, super fun project, a super fun house. This is Betty Davis's old house in the Rancho neighborhood, built in 1934. Really nice Tudor revival house on a really nice lot, right next to, well, I'll show you. But before we do that, and I think Kathy is going to get a kick out of this one, because, and I don't even know if you guys have seen this, but I did a little digging today and I found some early postcards depicting this house, but in putting our heads into the Mildred Pierce mindset, look what it says.
North Hollywood.
With Hollywood. So it's a total, Glendale's just not good enough. So.
But North Hollywood.
Oh, yeah? Cool. Yeah, I only got this blurry thing from an auction site, and then there's another one with a different Betty Davis pose. So there's also a poster of that. Cool. So North Hollywood sounds a lot better than Glendale, I guess, back then. So anyways, just wanted to share those. For context, the house is just off of Riverside Drive. It's where the red marker is, obviously. The park to the southwest is, to the southeast is Betty Davis Park. So it's well established that she lived here. I was excited when this project came because I always wanted to see this house, and it's hard to see from the street. The LA Equestrian Center is to the north, or up to the top of the picture. Griffith Park, obviously, across the river and the freeway. And Betty Davis was a well-known equestrian person in Hollywood, so it seems an appropriate location for her. Here's a nice aerial view of the property. Just to give you some visual orientation, we have the main house here with the large cross-gable roof. Over here, there's a guest house that was originally a stable that was converted into the guest house. There's a pool house here that was built by Betty Davis. So all three of these buildings are Betty Davis era. House was 1934. We don't have a lot of historical background. We didn't do digging on this so much. I don't think she's the original owner. Maybe the applicant and the owner will be able to share that with us. This L-shaped structure over here is a garage and stable that are more recent vintage. So these are not from Betty Davis, but they're nicely designed. They fit the property well. And then there's a brick wall at the front of the property that, when you're driving on Riverside, you see a brick wall that runs along quite a length of Riverside. So it's this area, or the estate was probably either larger, or there was a development that kind of took into account this design feature. So here's, the photos that we have aren't as great as the glamorous Magic Hour MLS shots, so I put some of these in just to give you an idea of how picturesque the house is at the twilight time. Front facade, details of the front of the house, the living room wing projecting on the left, front door and entry area. This is a good shot where you can see the really interesting clay tile roof. We don't have any other roofs like this in Glendale that I know of. I'm going to walk you around the property. The front facade, no changes are proposed, so we're calling this entry facade the front facade. On the west side of the house, there are limited changes. One of the big changes is getting rid of this obviously non-original patio cover. I'll go through the other changes in a second. Coming around the other side of the house, there's kind of an enclosed courtyard patio area. Toward the center of the right-hand picture and the left side of the left picture is kind of where the bulk of the work is happening that you'll see from this. And I should mention, I didn't even say that this is a project to put some additions and make a few alterations to windows and doors on the property. So some closer up views of the patio area, these two great fireplaces and beautiful brickwork. And then this is the rear facade of the house, and this is where the bulk of the addition will occur, though some of it will be visible from the patio side that we just looked at. This is a closer up view of the back of the house. A large part of the addition will be located in this notch, and the drawings will make this a little more clear. But the applicant originally proposed additions and changes in other portions of the house that would have been more prominent. And so in consultation with us, we kind of suggested that they move the addition to the rear facade as much as possible. And we think they did a really nice job in accommodating that and putting an addition where we think we can, well, we can support this and we'll talk about that more. This is the guest house, which is very limited changes here, mainly just some interior work, some fixing up the exterior. These two doors that you see here are going to be fixed shut, but the doors will be retained. This is a couple of shots looking toward the stable and garage area. The addition is going to bring the square footage of the house over the 3,500 square foot threshold that requires a 3-car garage rather than 2. They're in a very lucky position because the stable attaches to the back of the garage. So a couple of stalls of the stable are going to be enclosed to create a tandem parking space to create the required third enclosed parking spot. Here's the pool that Betty Davis had installed and the pool house. And here's a nice aerial view, again, looking straight down, just giving you an overall sense of the scope of the project. I added, and this is my very approximate PowerPoint addition, just to give you an idea where the addition is going to go. This is the front path going to the front door, so front facade, patio facade, and this is where the covered porch is over on the right. Here are the site plan drawings. The windows are shown, which we require because there could be privacy issues. There are none on this huge property. The detail on the right just gives you a better sense of the arrangement of the layout of the property. And if you look down at the bottom, the 3rd-car garage is going to be in this portion of the stables. There's no plan to change the stables at this point, although the owners also don't plan to keep horses. So here is the front facade. As I mentioned, no significant changes are proposed. I think there will be some cleanup. And then the non-original canopy at the west side of the house at the east side will be removed. Coming around to the east side, there are some changes to some window openings proposed toward the back of the facade. Here's in red, you see the canopy that will be removed. Under the canopy, a window is going to be removed and the opening changed in size. And pretty much all the window changes and door changes are based on the program of the new interior layout, which is really changing where the kitchen is and changing aspects of the program of the house. The existing door that you see here and you see here in the existing condition is going to be slightly widened. It's a very narrow door now. There's an existing window here that you see that is going to be replaced with new steel casement windows from Hope's company. And then a new window opening is going to be created on the right side. This is the master bedroom, and they wanted to bring more window and more light into this space. Just so you know, if you don't know Hope's, they make steel windows. They're based in Pennsylvania. And the profiles they make today are identical to the profiles that were used in the early 20th century. These windows will have double glass where there are new windows, but they're keeping many of the windows that have the single glazing. So the idea, and the architect can address this, but where a window is being changed in one room, it's being done because there's a desire to have the windows look the same when you're within the room, because one would have double glass, one would have single glass, there would be subtle differences. But the appearance would be the same, the profiles and sight lines and all that.
Jay, which elevation was that?
This is the east elevation.
Where the porch is going.
Yeah, all of this, all
removed.
four of
Okay.
these
Oh,
are the
okay.
east
There-
elevation.
okay.
I mean, I tried to break it up
Yeah.
and give you as much information on one slide as possible.
Right,
So,
right, okay.
so this is the existing condition, the proposed condition.
Okay.
And I put the demolition drawings because it's a nice way to highlight
Oh, yeah.
the actual changes that you're going to see. Okay, coming around to the west addition, I tried to line these up as much as possible, and there are more changes here. Some of them are within existing openings, replacement of the two French doors, replacement of these two windows for similar reasons to what I just discussed. This is the new kitchen area here, and they do want to open up a bunch of new windows here. And so that's an intervention that is a change from what we have. There's you can see this little covered portico, and not really a portico, just a little covered porch going into the side door is proposed to be removed. And I believe that is driven by the fact that they want to create a dormer here. There's a dormer that we'll see in a second on the opposite side of this roof that was installed by Betty Davis. This area is being converted to a bedroom, and so this dormer is being proposed to bring light and air into the bedroom based on the other part of the addition that's coming.
Do you
Yes.
have a photo of that elevation? Because I couldn't find it.
We don't have gray, yeah, it's right here.
Well, right, but that's.
I don't have a dead-on photo of it, unfortunately.
Because, okay, so there's a whole bank
Let
of windows?
me, this is, there's also an addition, I was building
Right.
up toward that. From this line here, over here, is an extension of this wing 10 feet.
Right,
So this is a 10-foot addition. The bottom is the demolition drawing, so the addition's not there, so I've tried to line this up here. So the dormer is going right here. This is showing the area of roof that would be demolished. And we'll see in a second, there's a kind of a corresponding dormer on the backside of this roof.
okay, and currently there's only a window on the top right where the chimney is. There's just one window to the left of the chimney, and this would propose to add two windows.
We're talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one window. These two windows are existing openings that are getting new sash to match what's there. And then these these 5 openings are new. One of them is an existing opening that's getting new sash, I believe, and we'll let the architect explain that. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, this is existing. These are new. 1, 2, 3, and then this is the addition here with a 3-part window. So is that part clear?
Yeah, so they're replacing the sash but keeping the original window.
No, the sash is the existing window.
Okay.
So,
because sometimes sashes. Yeah. Okay.
okay. Yeah, so just to be clear, these two windows are new windows being inserted into the existing opening.
Okay.
And you can check with the architect, but I believe that's to allow consistency of the interior experience and the exterior when you're looking at this area where there is this intervention going on. So. All right. And here are some renderings showing the area we just spoke about. This is the existing condition with the gable, with the half timbering and a window. This is the 10-foot extension of the area of the kitchen coming back toward the back property line. New windows, obviously, and then windows proposed at the gable. When we look at this in terms of the Secretary's standards, we'll talk about it in a minute, but there are two ways to look at this. Historically, extrusion, where you take a building form and you just stretch it out with the new addition, has been a common way to expand buildings for hundreds of years. And many of those buildings with those changes are still considered historic. And some of those changes were made 200 years ago. But the idea is the idea of doing this, as long as it's differentiated, could meet the Secretary's standards. So for differentiation, we're going to work with the architect to identify a way to, through the change in the brickwork from the old wall to the new wall, kind of have a line of demarcation. And then on this facade, the presence of these kind of more modern looking upper level gable windows would be a clear reminder to anyone looking at it that this is kind of a modern contemporary change from what was there. We'll talk about the back facade more on a subsequent slide. So this shows where the addition is going on the back. So the gable and the area below the gable is this extrusion coming back 10 feet. And then the area that infills the notch that I pointed out in the photo before is also going to come out. And this is represented here with this kind of mansard hipped roof over it. And this is pretty much the back facade where we asked the applicant to try to put the addition. And we think this is successful. We are recommending that the half timbering be simplified here to differentiate it further. And I think it could be as simple as just not having the diagonals, just having a more horizontal and vertical kind of pattern. This window here, which is in the master bedroom where we saw the addition of the window around the corner, this window is proposed to be slightly enlarged with new steel sash. Here's another view of the addition. So here's the mansard area. This is about the 10-foot section that's being extruded out to the north. And then we've seen this facade already. In terms of materials, they have explored brick and how to match brick. They're looking at Gavin Historical Bricks, which is one of the major brick salvage companies in the country. And they're hopeful that they're going to get a close match. We never get perfect matches, but in some ways that's okay because it is a way to differentiate old and new work, but I assume it's going to get pretty close. Here's some details of the Hope's windows and then some, the wood trim and the stucco, and there's going to be a general kind of cleanup of the materials around the property. The plan is to maintain the tile roof, although there are damaged tiles, and they also need to have tiles that are going to cover the 10-foot addition. We believe that the tiles on the stable are a decently close match, so some of those may be able to be harvested to use. And then people are still making clay tile, so it's quite likely that they'll be able to find a good match for this. That's not fully established at this point. And again, oops, out of order, but here are the Hope's windows, steel sash profiles. And this just shows the area where at the bottom left, where the stable is going to be enclosed for the third parking spot. And this is a better detail of that. This is the guest house, minimal changes there. And then I have the drawing. So that's the end of my presentation, but let me open up the staff report for a second because we did recommend several conditions and also planted some food for thought for you to consider as you're looking at this. But for conditions, we're recommending that if the commission accepts the 10-foot addition of the full extrusion of the rear wing, the applicant should work with staff to incorporate a subtle design detail at the west facade to indicate the transition from the existing wall to the new one. If the commission does not accept the proposed extruded portion of the addition, a one-story addition with a flat or pitched roof may be appropriate, which would allow the retention of the existing half timbering in the gable. It would also, in hindsight, I didn't put this in here, it would solve the window in the bedroom issue, so the dormer wouldn't necessarily be required in order to bring light and air into the bedroom, which is a building and safety requirement. I also put in a few considerations, again, to just stimulate discussion. Considered simplifying the design of the half timbering at the mansard portion, which I mentioned already. And staff recommends that the commission provide an opinion about the possibility of a slate roof replacement in case the tile is just not something that exists. Slate is definitely a material that is totally appropriate for a house of this type. But I think, and I think the applicants, and they can share this with you, I think everyone wants this clay tile roof to remain and do everything possible to keep it. So those are the staff recommendations. And we believe that this, regardless of which version you choose, I think this would be standards compliant for the rehabilitation standards. And if you have any questions.
Yes, any questions for staff?
Yes. How old is the current clay roof?
1934, I would presume.
Okay.
Well, go to Italy, you'll see clay tiles that are hundreds of years old.
I
So.
was just wondering, was any changes or the original? Great. Original, thank you.
Jay, when I went to look at the property, the dormer in the back that exists right now on the north elevation, even in the drawings, it's indicated as a half-timbered dormer, but it looks like something's going on with that dormer. Is there a plan to restore that dormer? There's like a vinyl window in it, and it's just textured stucco with a funny frame.
That's something you should ask the applicant. I thought I had a photo showing it, and it looks like I don't.
Is it going to stay?
So,
I mean, it's the only thing that's obviously, unless maybe that's just what Betty Davis wanted, and if so, maybe it stays. But something looks. It looks like that dormer.
this drawing indicates a plan, although the existing doesn't show it with a vinyl window.
Right.
And that's something to ask the applicant. That could be, if it's not on the drawings, it can be a condition that you recommend.
Okay.
Is that it for you, sir?
That's it.
Jay, can you go back actually to that slide?
The dormer slide?
That one is great. So the addition, the bump out, the single level portion, that one. So clearly it looks very different than the rest of the house in terms of the height of the brick facade and all of that. That's by design, right? To show that it's,
I believe the architect.
so that wasn't necessarily a point you made to them. That's the design they
This is
proposed.
what came in after we talked about finding ways to differentiate.
And that's something we're looking for, is that differentiation, right?
There are so many ways to differentiate
Yeah.
things that if you want to talk about it, once the architect's presenting, you can see if there are other ideas.
Great.
But
Okay, with that, let's open the public hearing. We have two cards for this house. I'm going to let you guys decide who goes first, the applicant or the architect, or the homeowner and the architect. Ben, great, if you don't mind just stating your name.
Hi. My name is Ben Adelson. I'm the owner of the home. We love this house. When we first saw it, we fell in love with it. Me and my wife moved here from New York City in 2016. In New York City, we lived in a Soho loft. That was one of the first co-op conversion lofts in all of Soho. It was a Soho building from like the 1900s or whatever it was from, and it was converted in the 70s. And so we lived there. Artists lived there. It was amazing. We moved here in 2016. We bought a 1929 Spanish bungalow in West Hollywood. We are one of the last left in our area. Everything else is a McMansion now. When we, and it was a rental that we went in and we renovated completely. And underneath the stucco fireplace was a is it Bachtyler Batchelor fireplace was underneath it.
Wow.
And so we were thrilled by that. We obviously kept that. And so we love historical homes. We live in one that's from 1929 that we've revamped, revitalized, one of the last ones in the area. So, you know, when we went to go see this home, because we have a 7-month-old at home, we have a dog, and we're planning to have a bigger family. So we live in a 2-bedroom home right now. So it's getting tight. And so when we saw this home come up, we had to go see it because we truthfully did not know about Riverside Rancho, did not know existed. During COVID, we lived in Colorado, which was great. And there was mountains and there was horses and it was beautiful. And then we went to this home and we're like, where are we? And so we fell in love with it. And it was your home. It was very competitive. It was the spring of 2022. There was 10 offers, and we were very, very vigilant in trying to get the home because we loved it so much. We also happened to have an offer that was slightly lower, but from our realtor to their realtor to our letter to the owner, and from even saying to the owner, our intent was to keep it and not do anything with the property that would, that would get rid of the history. And obviously, even going to the property and seeing the stables, we thought those were original. Obviously, they're from 1999. So even the previous owner, and we had seen them, they took about 2 years in permitting to get that done too. And we actually called the original architect who did that to see if he would help with the house. But he's actually that guy's like 90. So, so he was not available and didn't But you know, we understand the history of the home. We love the history of the home. We love the history of the area. But obviously, the home does need work. It is in not great shape inside. But obviously, from the plans that you've seen, and Aaron can tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. But you know, we're putting in the work and the time because we want to live here for the next 25 to 30 years, and that's our plan.
Great.
So we love the home. We love every little piece of history about it. We love historical homes. In the home is actually a fireplace from Jezebel is in the home. Wow. So she took the fireplace from her movie Jezebel, and it's in the home. So it's currently in what is the bedroom, which is now going to be like a den area too, because the fireplace made no sense of where it currently is. There's a lot of parts of the house that are strange, but we love the home. We love the history. We want to preserve it as best we can, and obviously bring it into where we are now. And but you know, and obviously it's about our growing family and also having our families come and visit and stay with us and all those sort of things. So we are really passionate about it, like honestly. And every time we go there, we're thrilled. And I can tell you, every time my dog goes there, he squeals like a pig because he knows he's going to run around the yard and have a great time because we live in West Hollywood.
And chase the coyotes that we see.
And the coyotes that were there was, that's, we'll get there with that.
Day.
Yeah, that was, I think a couple of you saw the coyotes. So yeah, that was our first coyote. So yeah, that was interesting too. But we love it. We love the area. My wife has joined all the clubs that are available to do, and we went last year for the Christmas parade that they have with the horses in the area.
Oh, cute.
So that was very cool. So
Good.
yeah, so we love it all.
Well, thank you. We might invite you back up in a minute to ask questions, but for now, why don't we listen to your architect? Thanks. Isn't that right? We'll just listen to both of them and then. Thank you. Aaron, if you don't mind stating your name for us.
Good evening. Aaron Lesh, the architect of the project. We were introduced to the owner through an interior designer who we've worked with many times, a company called Pearson Ward, who had met the owner, and we've worked with on a number of projects, and they are have worked on a number of historical properties in California and throughout the country. And one of the owners of the property, actually, she just recently restored an original Tudor in Alabama, was featured in Architectural Digest. So they're very familiar, and they wanted to bring in an architect who they knew could help them kind of see the vision through and respect the architecture and kind of work with it. When we originally started on the project, it was a much larger addition. It was mostly on the side facing Western Avenue, which is now the front yard. The front of the house, when Betty Davis purchased it, was originally on Rancho, which that part of the street was actually vacated. So you see from the aerials, there's kind of a dead end into the gate, and that used to go all the way through. So this property was kind of an amalgamation of multiple lots over time. So there was an alley that cut through from Riverside. It was all kinds of chopped up. So you can see that little dip in there was actually the front of the house. So the front yard has changed over time, just geographically speaking. So the first thing we did was kind of get a yard determination to figure out what is our front yard, because our address is Rancho, but it's clearly not a street anymore. So most of the addition that we originally were proposing with the owners was facing western. After doing a preliminary staff review and meeting with Jay and the other planners that were assigned to the project, they had kind of alerted us to the fact that it was, for consideration potentially as a historically significant property. So we wanted to respect that as much as possible. We met with them a few times, once at the house, multiple times over Zoom, and then kind of moved our addition, shrunk it down, tried to relocate it away from the public view, despite there not being a lot of actual public view due to foliage and whatnot, and try and put most of that addition in the back, restoring most of the western facade to what it originally was. The additions that we're proposing are approximately 715 square feet, more or less. They are we're relocating the kitchen, so a lot of that work in the addition, that's an extrusion, as Jay explained, is to kind of make a larger kitchen, more for how modern families live with respecting the architecture. Part of that space will actually be a 2-story space, so that you get lots of natural light through those windows facing the side yard there. And then the infill is primarily their daughter's bedroom and a bathroom and the kind of connecting hallways and things between that. To speak about the roof, it is an original roof on the main house and on the guest house. I believe the roof is originally as well on the small pool house. The garage and stables, which were constructed in about 1999, 2000, there was a variance to construct those against the property line that was appealed and then granted. That roof is very similar looking and was obviously installed about 20 years ago. So we're still looking to find if we can figure out where we can get the same type of tiles, not only to match, but to repair. There is some waterproofing that needs to be repaired. All of those tiles are cemented into the roof. So, we've looked at it with the contractor, and it's going to be kind of as we pull them off, how well do they come off? Can we put them back on, kind of a situation? So we're very hopeful that we can remove some and find replacements. If we cannot, which again is not our preference, then we would propose a slate roof to replace the entirety of the main residence, so that it all is consistent. And then if we can potentially, if there's only small portions that we need, we can use from the garage from the 1999 edition, and then maybe that's more sensitive to have a separate roof on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So you heard Jay's report, and you heard him say a couple of times, well, we should probably talk to the architect. Can we start with maybe just you giving us your thoughts on the concept of this being a historic structure with a new addition on it, and the division and the spaces, and how you think they should work together, and what your thoughts are on the design that you came up with? Maybe, Jay, you could pull up that one slide that I asked to look at before that just sort of shows the rear.
I was just going to say to Aaron, I have all of your drawing set here, if there's anything you want me to refer to.
The 3D of the back corner that shows, and we can look at a photo at first if you want, that shows the courtyard potentially, and then we can go to that back corner.
Tell me when to stop.
Oh, go.
Oh, I passed it already.
You did, yeah. You did. There we go.
There you go.
So yeah, this is part of it. So there's a courtyard. The top photo or the top rendering is kind of an existing approximation of existing conditions. There's a courtyard back there with some small windows, air conditioning units and whatnot, not visible at all from, we'll say the street is Western Avenue in this case, not visible at all. So that addition that infills that courtyard sticks out about 10 to 12 feet, I think, from the existing facade. That is clearly an addition. We're battling with lots of roof lines on this house. So one of the biggest challenges that we were trying to solve for were these competing roof lines. How do we add to the house in a sensitive way that doesn't just make this a mountain of peaks and gables? So that addition was kind of tucked in nicely and fit well within that courtyard. The 10-foot addition that we're creating off of that north volume where the existing master bedroom is, that you can see in the top photo, to do a new roof line there and a different shape altogether felt quite hodgepodge, for lack of a better term, right? So we were trying to find a way to create a new roof line or something else that would clearly differentiate it. It was making it feel very cluttered and very messy, given the different ridge heights that we have here with the cross gables and all kinds of different things happening. So our concept and intention was to, well, we're only extruding. We originally extruded, I think, 17 or 18 feet. We pushed that back to only a 10-foot addition in that area. And the cleanest thing to do, in our perspective, was to just continue that roof line. Inside that volume, you can see in the upper image, there is a window in that existing kind of second floor. It's a very oddly shaped second floor, but there is some space up there. That window, we're actually not we're not extending that floor plate any. So the 10-foot area in the kitchen will actually be a double height space. And so that window is now not an exterior window. Thus, we created the dormer on the interior side, away from the street. That gives us the light and air and a place to tuck the bed, because we can no longer put it within the tight space on the end of that gable.
Got it. Okay.
So sorry, did
No,
you mind?
please.
So is the addition of the dormer a code requirement because you're getting rid of that window? 'Cause I think Jay had said something about it.
There isn't the dormer itself is not a code requirement. Operable windows and light and air are a code requirement. We could do a roof window, which is not stylistically kind of in kind.
But there needs to be a window
You need to
there.
have an operable window. There's
You couldn't do a roof, you have to have egress from your bedrooms.
You have to have egress, right? So there are some products. That the existing dormer is an added bathroom that was done by Betty Davis.
Bedroom.
That's not part of the bedroom. So there's like a small bathroom there. So that window doesn't work for us. And it was replaced with some vinyl window at some point.
Okay. And so that, back to Jay's question, or I think it was Daniel's point about that window, that's a window that's going to be replaced with something in kind, right?
Yes, because it's horrendous.
But it's currently up to code because of the window at the rear.
Correct.
The room is, yeah. Okay.
And then and then to get back to, can you comment on the dormer that exists and what
Mm-hmm.
your plans are?
Yeah, I think in the 3D that's the new dormer, but if we go to the
dormer that
back side,
exists.
yeah, I think the half timbering is slightly different in reality right now than it is in the rendering. Yeah, there you go. So it's only that roof triangle, which isn't consistent with the rest of the house,
Yeah.
really. So, you know,
It is stuccoed at the moment.
It's stuccoed
Okay,
right
with
now,
that window in it.
poorly, and then there's that vinyl window.
Now, it is the dormer installed during Betty Davis's occupancy, so keep that in
When
mind.
was she, how long was she there? When did she
I'm
leave?
not actually sure. I don't know if you know.
Wasn't there?
It was less than 10 years.
She was not the original owner. Yeah.
That's okay. I was going to invite you up, actually. Why don't we just keep you both at the
It
podium?
was less than 10 years.
Okay. Why don't you just stay, because there might be questions that you can answer.
Yeah, I think the house was built or permitted in 1934. From everything I've read, she moved in. She started doing work in the 40s. My guess is, or in 1940. My guess is she moved in fairly soon before that. And yeah, I guess was there about 10 years.
She owned, like, it wasn't just our house, she owned 2 acres. So
Right.
she owned most of that area that is, where that brick wall that encloses to the street was all hers. And then it got divided up, and you've seen it in the way that the district, it's all kinds of crazy, our what would you call, property lines.
Yeah.
Is all kinds of crazy. Because it was one big piece of property that they eventually, because she left, it eventually got divided, and that was also where, on that part that shares with the horse park, that was a street, right? That was an alley, and they closed that off.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. We have somewhere in all the files we have, because we have hundreds of pages of stuff that were eventually sent to us, was that was originally what it was 2 acres. So you can look that up, it was 2 acres originally, and this is, yeah.
Is there how did you verify that this was done while she was there? Is there a building permit for it, for this added dormer?
I have to look. There are a number of the records from then are sparse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of documentation on the variance hearings.
Yeah.
From the 90s.
Yeah.
But I haven't found original plans. But there is documentation that she did the pool work, the bath. There's some written documentation. once you found
Casey
some.
did go through the permits, and I think she may have found something there. We definitely found a permit for the pool in the pool house. I don't have them in the file here, unfortunately.
There was a permit from because the guest house is the original stables. And there was a permit that was those got converted into the guest house, and that was granted. So that's why you'll see on the guest house, there's those, what you guys saw, those original stable doors are still there.
It's just that something looks funny about this dormer. Aside from the fact that it has a vinyl window, I mean, that's clearly very recent, but, if there's a way to verify that that's the way the dormer was put in the 50s or whenever she was there, maybe it doesn't need to be, maybe it just stays as part of a historical chapter of Betty Davis, but it certainly looks kind of odd right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that led me to believe that it may be original is that the roof matches.
The roof does match.
And there's other parts of the roof, so like that small roof over the kitchen door, the color on that roofing is quite different. So either that was replaced, but the coloring on the roofing over this dormer seems to be maybe just as dirty. I don't know.
Yeah, the stucco on this, I mean,
It's
maybe
strange.
The stucco's strange. I mean, it looks cleaner than the stucco
Yes.
on the back of the house. So here, and I don't know if like this stucco looks much more aged than the stucco on the dormer. Like,
Yeah.
so clearly the dormer, unless somebody just decided to randomly clean the dormer one morning, like, but it looks like it's younger somehow.
And that window is definitely newer. Maybe when they.
Stuccoed when the window was installed.
maybe
that's
Things
the
like
thing,
that
yeah.
are more fragile than other parts of the house.
Is that the only dormer on the house right now?
I believe so.
My other question, since you're up here too, is why are you keeping the stables if you don't want? Why? I mean, why keep them at all?
Don't say this out loud. People in the rancho are listening.
But they're from the late 1990s.
Well, they look great. I mean,
They
I
look-
don't see a
okay.
reason to do that, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
really.
They're on the property line. It might be hard to convert them to anything else.
I don't. Yeah,
You
I
can't
mean,
convert them to anything.
yeah. We're not trying to do anything with them
Right.
outside of just.
They just kind of stay. Because, I mean, we talked, I think there was a word, I don't know if you used the word harvesting or cannibalizing.
Listen to that.
Oh my goodness.
But it was something harsh about the possible, using the tiles from those stables for the house. And if there's an issue with trying to find the clay tiles, it seems like you have plenty of them on these 1999 stables.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I think that's
That's
the
the
intent.
reason why I'm asking.
Well, that's the intent.
Yeah,
is-
okay.
is we'll go to those if we need to, or we can't.
But no need to demolish the stables there.
Got it.
No,
Yeah, right.
I don't. I mean, I love how they. I mean,
Charming.
They
Super
look
cool.
great. Yeah, I don't. I mean, we thought when we were there, and I think anybody who goes by thinks they're original.
Yeah,
Because
they
they
were
did
so
such
well
a
done.
They're well done, yeah.
When they did it, they did such a thorough job of matching. That was, almost 30 years
23,
ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So 25 years ago. So yeah.
So I have a question about the tiles, is if they could get such a good match in 1999, is it not possible?
I
get
have
it
the
now?
architect's name. I can also hit him again. I think, look, we've Aaron and our team have been very thorough with everything. So I think it's just,
We have a contractor who's been consulting with us and that will very likely do the project, and he's had his roofers on their goose chase to find a match. There are multiple different clay types that were kind of mixed together. So whether that was bought as a mix or pieced together, we're still trying to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that this will work
I mean, from a
out.
cost standpoint, it makes sense to try to just find matches than to replace the whole roof. I'm sure their intent would
Yeah,
be to do that if they
Yeah,
can.
the concrete or the cement mortar bed may be an issue. So.
I also had one more question, is the plans talk about plans for the pool, but just said that's something separate? Is that,
No, there's no plans to do anything with the pool other than clean it.
Okay.
And
Make it work.
replace the water.
okay.
Yeah.
No plans for the pool. I think there's an enormous amount of pool equipment in that pool house right now that's outdated, that can
Okay.
be reduced down, but there's no plans for the
yeah,
pool.
if you see on the 1999 stables, there's solar panels. Those are for solar heating the
Solar hot
pool.
water on facing the.
Yes. Yeah, that's what those are. So if you see those photos, you'll see on the, you can see it. There's those solar panels are back there.
There they are.
Yeah, there they are.
Those are to heat the pool
Wow.
only.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
yeah.
To be a nice
we
warm pool.
originally thought those were doors for the horses to go out into the field.
So there's believe me, the bathroom where the pool house also has, I think I told you, it has no plumbing apparently. So yes.
Yes, you mentioned that.
So
Yes, it's a
that's-
pool house literally, but nothing
I don't
else.
know.
Not an outhouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you go back to that one drawing we've been sitting on there for a while? I want to ask one more
The
question.
dormer?
Yes. The rendering, yeah. My question, I guess, is for the architect. The differentiation that you've created with the white stucco versus the brick apportionment is, I'm assuming that was done on purpose for the,
Yes,
right, to separate and differentiate, right? Assuming this wasn't a historic, let's say this wasn't a historic house, would that have been your first preference? Or would you have maybe brought the brick up and tried to make it a little more uniform? Or is this,
Personally, I think it breaks it up nicely. I think
Does.
otherwise there's a lot of brick.
okay.
I do like that. I'm not married to it, but I think it's a nice kind of cleaner
Because,
representation.
I mean, really,
of
you
that
walk around the
addition.
whole house and there is no brick. The brick goes all the way up, pretty much all the way around the house.
It goes to basically the floor line of the
Yeah.
second floor, and then everything above that kind of, you can see the course on the left there, everything above that ends up being
Yes.
stucco.
So this is the only place where it doesn't do that.
That's correct.
Okay. And you're good with that?
I am.
Okay.
yeah.
Just want to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with that too, because if you were to add new brick to it, there'd be such a glaring difference of the original brick and the new brick. It wouldn't match at all. I think this is much nicer.
But we are
hopeful
talking
that
about
there will
doing
be
that.
brick,
We're
so-
talking about doing that on the 10-foot portion where the kitchen is. The part that's behind that's coming out is going to be brick up to that height. So there will be some place where they're lining up. Oh, and actually, I guess that was a question we maybe should ask you is what is your plan for where they meet? Maybe you can find the rendering that shows that portion. What is your plan for where that line is, where the new 10-foot addition is, to give the sense of old versus new?
In that portion,
Historic versus new. Sorry.
in that particular portion, the plan was to try and feather the new brick in. And when I say new brick, the brick that we would use on that would be salvaged from the demolished parts of the house. So there's an internal courtyard that we're demolishing. We would salvage that brick as much as possible. That end facade that is being extruded, we would salvage that brick as much as possible to match it. So at that particular line, because there's not much brick below that window, it was going to be connected through. In discussions with Jay, there was some talk about potentially doing something to demarcate that. So
Yeah.
that's open for a discussion.
Okay, so if you've done your job in your mind right, the only way to really differentiate that addition might be actually from the Riverside elevation that has the new chimney and the windows, knowing that those were not original. But if we're looking at it from this angle, in your mind, you're going to try to make it line up as much as possible.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and we'll start our deliberations. Thank you. Who would like to go first? Ms. Yurka?
I wanted to express, apart from the project, I wanted to express a concern I have about our understanding of the property. As I understand it, there has never been a historic resource evaluation prepared for it, and staff acknowledge that it's eligible for the Glendale Register. They state that in spite of the changes, it would continue to be eligible for the Glendale Register. My concern is that because of its association with Betty Davis, and that it seems to me quite likely eligible for the California Register and/or the National Register. I think that the house would be eligible under multiple criteria. It would be eligible for its architecture. It would be eligible for its association with Betty Davis as a film historian. She is just enormously important to the history of the film industry. I did a Google map. How far was this from Warner Brothers? Because that was her studio, and it was 3 miles. So
She probably rode a horse
she
there.
could have. She
Well,
could
then
have
she got a
taken
postcard
horse.
one day that said she lived in North Hollywood, and she was like, I'm out of here.
It is too big.
And she's important not just as, one of the most respected and honored actresses of the 1930s and 40s, but also as someone who, was an activist within the studio system. I mean, she was one of the very early people to sue Warner Brothers for their 7-year contracts. Because she was being typecast and didn't want to have to play the roles that they were committing her to. And so, I mean, she's just a very important figure. I also think that this property is quite likely eligible for its association with the early development of this equestrian area in Glendale. There's been a lot, the Rancho is a very unique community. And I really appreciate how much you love the house, and I completely believe how sincere you are. There are a lot of changes that are proposed here beyond the addition. I'm just really surprised by the number of window infill, not window infills, the expansion of the windows, the replacement of windows. I feel like some of the interior considerations should have been driven more by the exterior features of the house rather than the exterior being so substantially altered to accommodate new interior uses or new interior configurations. And I do understand that, and the interior space, I mean, that is not covered by any kind of historic, whether it's on the National Register or the local register, the interiors is really not covered. But if it impacts the exterior, it is. It is something that we need to be concerned about. And, when I look at, that view and, windows are being replaced so that they look good on the interior, that you don't have dual and single. I mean, I think much more of the exterior fabric needs to be preserved. I know that this mentions that some of the features are deteriorated, but it's not clear to me whether they can be repaired or not. I mean, steel is a very heavy-duty material. And from my perspective, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with this until we have a historic resource evaluation that considers its eligibility for the California and the National Register, because I do think that the changes proposed would be a problem. I think it's too much for a Glendale Register property of this significance, but I think we don't have enough information.
Why do we not have a survey, I guess? Why was it, or basically a report on it?
Because this property is clearly eligible for the Glendale Register on 2 criteria. Staff, through our ordinance, is allowed to make that determination. Whether it's eligible for California or national, that's another story. The Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation allow all of the things that are being proposed when we think it's not destroying the association with Bette Davis or the character of the architecture. In my opinion, that argument can be made pretty strongly. So we've never held anyone. It's very difficult in Glendale, which is an owner consent city in terms of designation. But because we have discretionary design review, the only city in the state, I believe, that does so, CEQA kicks in differently here than it does anywhere else.
You're saying we're the only city in the state that has discretionary design review?
For every single property. Yeah.
Laguna Beach does, so.
Okay, we're the
not.
Second or
There
third. There are very few cities do that. It puts us in a funny place. So I would not be comfortable when someone comes to us with a proposal like this, which we worked hard to get the design to a place that was very different from where it started, to say, oh, well, plus you need to spend a few $1,000s to do an assessment of a house that we clearly recognize and acknowledge is historic, which is why it's before the HPC, just to evaluate whether it's California or national eligible. I think the decision could be made, and Commissioner Yerka might vote against this for that reason, but it just seems on a just essential level of fairness. It's holding this property owner and this property to a standard that's way beyond what other people would go to. I think you can make your assessment based, and if you don't think these changes would allow it to be eligible for the National Register, then you might vote against it, but we've never held another property to that standard.
I don't know how many likely National Register eligible properties have come through here, so I don't.
Well, the Masonic Temple was probably, I think it may have been identified as National Register eligible. And we did huge interventions on that building that were approved by the commission. That's one example
Over
that
my,
comes to mind.
like, strenuous objections.
The commission isn't a body, as you know, and so the decision was made that those changes were appropriate to bring a dead building back to life. This is not a dead building, of course. This is a nice house. But the standards for rehabilitation are clearly designed to allow significant changes. Replacing a steel window with a new steel window is not a big deal. I worked on a tax credit project where hundreds and hundreds of steel sash from several buildings were 100% replacement with windows that didn't even quite match what was there, partly because that was impossible, so we got as close as we could. And that went through a tax credit, the highest level of review that we have in the country, and that was approved by the SHPO and by the Washington office. So it's just my experience that there's maybe a little more flexibility than you're ready to accept, and that's fine, because as one commissioner, you may not be able to accept that.
Well, I do think it would be very useful to have an analysis and a conditions assessment, and I'm not in a position to insist on it, but I do think it should have been insisted before this went forward. I mean, I really do, that we should know the level of historical significance that we are dealing with, because I think we can all agree that this is a really exceptional property, and that it's not like an ordinary Glendale Register property coming before us, so.
Can I ask a couple questions on this topic then? Okay, so for those watching at home who may have friends who've gone through this process or who've watched a lot of our meetings, who are saying to themselves, gosh, I feel like every property that's come before them has been surveyed. Why didn't this one have to? So my question is that because there was no pushback from the homeowner that the house was eligible? Like, for instance, we've had Craftsman Homes come before us for demolition, and they've had to provide a historic resources survey for their house to say that it actually is a resource and it can't be demolished. And that was a situation where we had a property owner refuting the idea that the house was historic. In this case, is it because the homeowners and the city are in agreement with the relative
I think
historic?
that's fair, yeah.
Okay, and that's the.
To me, this house is clearly eligible for the Glendale Register. That's our benchmark. Our codes are all written about the Glendale Register. Nothing talks about California or National Register.
Well, except CEQA.
Right, and that's kind of where this owner consent and Glendale and Laguna Beach and maybe 10 other cities out of however many cities are in the state may have this issue. But it's hard for me to see it as a CEQA issue. It's either you think it meets this, the most important threshold here is, does this meet the standards? And that's where I think there's plenty of room for disagreement between all of us on that issue. I think it does, and I think there are alternatives that would also meet the standards if you decided to go in that direction.
I mean, there isn't even a list of character-defining features. I mean, there's a reference here or there to, well, this isn't really a character-defining feature, or it fits with the character. I mean, there's no, there's just like a kind of basic analysis of the property that is really
This is
typical.
a design review application, and we brought it forward as a design review application to the Historic Preservation Commission. How angry would all of you be if we had brought this to the DRB? So we're doing it to the best of my ability and understanding of how we've worked historically, even before I was here, since I've been here. This is the proper channel to look at this and to take it that step further, because CEQA doesn't even require that we look at it under California or National Register. Does it meet the standards? Is it still eligible at the end of the day to be on our register, which we've identified it as eligible to be on our register?
Well, not quite. If there's a belief that it's eligible for the National Register or the California Register, and that these alterations would render it ineligible, then that's an impact under CEQA.
That's all I have to say.
May I ask a question of you, Catherine? So then, is this, in your mind then, do you think that any properties that come before us in this sort of situation, or anything that comes before us, should be surveyed?
Do you mean have a historic resource evaluation
Report.
prepared?
Yeah.
I
feel like we always have them. That's why I'm
right.
asking.
I mean, this just feels so inadequate to the. I mean, it just feels inadequate to the
Had
property.
we asked for the historic resource report, it would have said, we don't even generally necessarily have National Register assessments, and it's a really, if you talk to consultants, like what is California eligible, Daniel can probably address this, there's some gray area in that determination and what's the difference between a California Register and a National Register eligible. There's a lot of gray area in that. I hear your point, I get it, and I think you can register this issue and see what your colleagues think, but ultimately, I believe we brought this through in the proper manner, and we did not ask them to take the extra step because it's so clearly eligible for our local register, and they agreed. They were fine with that. It's an exciting thing.
I'm curious what our other two commissioners are thinking so far.
One quick question, maybe it's in here, but I didn't see it. Do we know who the original architect is of this building? Nobody, huh?
No, I couldn't
Interesting.
find it looking up.
Well, it's extremely rare in Glendale to know that, but
Right,
yes,
right.
someone might have found something in Southwest Builder and Contractor. Nothing came up in a Google search for that.
And it's
so.
interesting, I'm only bringing it up because I landmarked a bunch of storybook houses in LA for the John Van Pelt residence. It's the largest collection of storybook, probably the largest in, I think, the state. And likely that was probably built by somebody, it was designed by somebody who was a set designer for one of the studios. And so I think it'd be an interesting thought that maybe if she was already affiliated with Warner Brothers, and this is so, there's such a wonderful, I mean, it's Tudor, it's not storybook, but it clearly has, it's that kind of enchanting character from that era.
She's not the original owner, so.
Oh, okay. Well, then delete that. but I was just curious about the architect of the building. But either way, it's a remarkable example of its
Yeah,
kind.
it's a great Tudor house.
Okay.
Were there any callers, by the way?
No.
Okay.
So I want to commend, just from what I've heard from the applicant and Jay, it sounds like you've already gone through quite a process in moving things around, and I want to commend this effort on Jay's part and the applicant's part and the architect's part. I think somewhat different than Kathy on this, respectfully. I don't see, I think as a Historic Preservation Commission, we're cognizant enough of character defining features, and we know this enough to be able to figure those out pretty quickly. That's why we're here. We know how to do that. We're appointed these positions because we already are able to figure out character defining features on the fly. I don't think it's reasonable. It doesn't feel reasonable to me that because you have a property that's more significant, that they should have to go through some other extra step to determine that other district contributors don't. That somehow doesn't seem fair to me. Jay, I think Jay's right. The property's clearly eligible for something that requires stepping through the Secretary of the Interior standards. There's a preponderance of evidence for that. The applicant's already in agreement on that. In terms of what these additions look like thus far, I'm honestly, I'm fine with most of them. I think that the window situation on the north elevation with so many on the upper level is definitely different than you would have in the period of significance for when Betty Davis lived there, or if you want to ascribe the period of significance to when the house was built. But that's also that's a very clear way to indicate differentiation, to indicate that this is a newer element of the house. In a way, in my mind, where I don't think you need to fiddle around with brickwork on the west elevation or add a delineating line. I mean, I think that that elevation speaks for itself as something differentiated from before. I do find it compatible. I find it very almost contemporary in a way, but it's done within the massing. and it's not visible. I mean, I feel like it's very much hidden from any public view shed. And I think an argument can be made on the counterpoint that, well, if it's not visible, it's still different, and okay, fine. But I feel like most of what I'm seeing here is thoughtfully done. I understand that there's a desire to bring more light into a space. I do. Your point about designing this from the inside first to the exterior has me thinking about some possible changes in terms of a little less window. And then I go back to that dormer. I would love to see that dormer, made more compatible with everything else. Clearly, the vinyl window needs to be taken care of. But let's use that dormer as an example. Let's say, aside from the vinyl window, let's say that dormer was done, let's say Betty Davis picked that dormer to be exactly as it is minus that vinyl window. Well, that right there, as buildings live and as they go over decades, they do evolve. And sometimes the evolution of a building is not to bring it exactly back to day one of that building to make it livable. And I do believe in some flexibility to make a building livable. And, and that if that dormer is what she wanted, that becomes another chapter and you look at the dormer in an instant and you think, oh, that's so wrong. It's kind of a garishly wrong. I mean, vinyl window aside, but that dormer can speak to how sometimes things are a little bit different and they get folded in to the larger building. My personal opinion, just seeing everything that's here, there's no way that the changes that they're proposing would make this not eligible for the National Register. There's too much of this property left associated with Betty Davis that clear. If a historical contemporary went to it, if Betty Davis went back to that property today, even with those changes, she would probably still recognize it as her property. So at the very least, it would still have integrity under A and B, and I still think it has integrity as a Tudor design. There's a lot of changes to that north elevation, but I don't think those changes. I really appreciate the efforts that have been put forth to make those changes compatible, and I don't think those changes are so severe that they would warrant any sort of delisting or a change in status, even at the highest levels for this house.
Even for the architecture?
Even for the architecture.
Wow.
Even for the architecture. If you walk around the front of that house, if you walk around the side of that house, I bet I could find, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I bet I could find, if I dug even for probably, a half hour, other National Register listed properties with additions that are either later, either just after the period of significance or even more later to make it livable, where those properties are still listed. I'm pretty sure they exist. I could think of, everything that comes to mind are districts I've worked on when I did Pioneer Town. We had all kinds of new buildings on Main Street in Pioneer Town that were done later, and they still listed that. Mental physics.
District.
It's a district,
Yeah.
though. So
We have the Central Library, which again, I know, Kathy, you hate, but everyone else likes.
that entryway, yeah. So those entryways.
Not everyone
It was nice
likes
to see the. It was nice to see the.
That's right, yeah.
It was nice to see the eclipse there the other day. By the way, I watched the library had a wonderful eclipse viewing party.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I watched it with glasses on. So the eclipse glasses. So and then to go back to I think what you mentioned or someone about the hipped roof addition. I feel like I've seen Tudor style buildings that are hipped with that much stucco on them before. So I don't think. And again, I would say that the very existence of that addition is the differentiation. I don't know if you need to do too much more than that. These changes are clearly differentiations. I mean, a lot of these, somebody with a sharp eye who cares or is cognizant of this architecture is clearly going to recognize, okay, this is probably not from day one of this building. I start to get really nervous when things are overly differentiated. I feel like a building can jump the shark at a certain point. My only, you know, I would love to see something happen with that dormer that you have. If you could, like, I mean, clearly in here it doesn't look like it does in real life. And then my only other concern would be the other dormer. It looks kind of big, and it's changing. It seems like it's the existence of that other dormer is changing the circumstances with the gabled entry below it. To me, it seems like that it would be nice if something could be done with that, but if not, you know, that dormer seems kind of massive, and then you're losing that porch below it, which I think, and now you have this I think, is that west facing? Is that right?
Yeah, that's the
west
west
facing
facade.
facade with all of these windows. And that gets back to kind of where I agree with Kathy to a point, you know, and I don't mean to sound like confusing or hypocritical. I don't have any problem with the, you know, the north, with all of those windows on the north. They're hidden. I guess the west elevation is very private too. I think that those windows on the north, the upper portion, clearly delineate this. That's all the differentiation you would need to indicate that this is something newer. Nobody was doing that back then. Where I have a little bit of a concern, I feel like I'm wondering if something could be resolved a little bit better with the west elevation. With now you have it seems like there's a lot of almost like a flat brick massing with a really long row of windows in this very big dormer. These might just be personal biases, but that's the part everything on the north I'm more or less fine with. I'm curious about the oval window, but I can't remember offhand if Tudor has those in the north. But I could see the efforts made, and I really appreciate that. And if we did, you know, if we had required an evaluation or some other determinant, I know we could see what the character defining features are. I'm wondering if that would make anything really different than where they are today, even if they stepped through that step. So
I can jump in, and this is where I will agree with Kathy about the interior dictating the exterior. The dormer's width is to accommodate the bed for a few inches. Surely the dormer could be narrowed, be more proportional, less big. The bed would move in 6 inches. This walking area might be reduced a little bit, but that could be a compromise position if you thought that was appropriate. Because I don't, actually I have the drawings in front of me, but I probably won't be able to read that dimension, but it does look fairly wide compared to the bathroom dormer, certainly.
I would like to reopen the public hearing and invite the architect up to maybe answer this question for us so we can get some clarity, if you don't mind. Thank you.
The dormer is kind of sized width-wise to accommodate a bed. We could shrink it for potentially a smaller bed. It cannot move in necessarily because the steepness of the roof at that point would not allow you to actually like get out of that bed. So the dormer actually allows for headroom for you to lay in the bed because it is so steep at that section. So that was really what the dormer was to accommodate, because there's no other guest room in this on this floor.
People are so rigid, they just sleep the other way.
I know. Facing the window. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Lay long ways, please. Yeah.
Can you, how much wider is it than the one opposing it, the one on the opposite roof?
Yes, it is. I will tell you exactly. From the exterior, it is 8 foot wide, the new dormer. The existing dormer is approximately 7'2", so it's about 10 inches wider.
It's not a huge difference.
The ridge lines line up right now, which is what dictated its space above that door. Yeah, that's how large.
Betty Davis clearly wanted a second floor bathroom. That must be what that was, because
He
there was
did,
not one
yes.
there before, was there?
Since you're here, I have a quick question for you. Why are they, on the other guest house off the yard, how come those doors are being locked, they're being sealed shut? How come that's not being used as a guest house?
It is.
There's two portions of that plan. There's the old stable doors. That's going to be like the bedroom area, so those don't need interior access anymore. Plus, they're not really properly sealed.
But the crossbuck doors, are those going to be still
Just
usable?
the one on the right will be usable. The one on the left will be sealed. So there's one entry
Okay,
into the.
so that's still going to
space.
be used as a guest bedroom?
Yes, yes, it's split. It's just I think the staff report said that both doors are being sealed, but the one on the right is being maintained as an operable door. The one on the left will be
Got it.
sealed shut. The same door, though,
Okay.
maintained.
So somebody will be able to go inside there still?
Oh, yes,
The
yes.
operation lines are hidden by the diagonals on the door.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for our architect before I close public hearing? No, thank you. I'll close public hearing. Commissioner Doom.
I wish to applaud the applicant for all the work and effort they've done to try and make this look as relevant to the condition of the current house and historical preservation of the house. And I was reading through the reports here, not to bore you with the pages of 53 through 55, about the Secretary of Interior standards, and the reports are that it is conditional to such the standards as done. And I know that we have older houses that have run changes to it less than this that are on their registers. So I wonder why back in 1999, when they did the whole variance thing, that house was in place on the register back then, or looked at then.
The
I know,
owner has to
we're not
nominate.
going back in a time machine
And
to look at that, but they didn't do it then.
yeah, 1999, it wasn't identified in the preservation element, so our earliest designations all kicked in 97. The later ones started, but yeah, we can't answer that.
No, we can't.
But
But I know it is still eligible, and that's up for the applicant to decide, not for us. We're lucky it is brought before us in the Historical Commission, and I'm glad we can vote on it, and I'm glad they did it to the level that they did to preserve its historical integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doom. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into all of that. I think I agree with everyone that you guys have done a great job under the circumstances. I do understand Commissioner Yurka's concerns about a survey report, a historic report being done on the property, but I also understand where you're coming from, Daniel, is that, we're all experienced, we should be able to do this. The reality is this is a public process, and there are people out in the world that don't have that kind of experience and aren't given the access that we're given to these properties. So if there were people in the public that wanted to comment on something like this, that report is their foot in the door. They're the only resource they have to learn about the property. I don't know that this is the property that we should be using necessarily to change the way we do things. I appreciate Jay's point that, the city staff has the discretion to make these determinations in it. And so I feel like they've been through enough, I guess, so far, that I think to tack that onto it when we all sort of are in agreement that there is eligibility there. And if the majority of our colleagues here ultimately decide that these changes aren't significant enough to make it ineligible, then I think that hopefully we're the commission that's here when they decide to come forward someday to have it designated. With that, if someone would like to make a motion that would...
I'm not done.
Sorry, you're not done. Sorry.
Sorry.
Actually, what I do want to say is, before someone makes a motion, if someone makes a motion, just review, I think we should review the conditions and the considerations. There's a couple of minor things. Is there anything we want to change or modify? Commissioner Yurka.
Yes, so I take your point about not having an additional evaluation, and I know Glendale has the way that it does things, and that makes sense. And it's more a concern, I mean, I would like to have an evaluation of this against those criteria. I mean, I think would, I think more information is better when we're making decisions about homes that are this important. I also understand the point about it being an unfair burden to place on someone at this stage in the process. I will say, and I say this very emphatically, that I do not believe that this project meets the standards. And, you know, I take what you're saying, Daniel, about it. Yes, it's differentiated. It reads contemporary. I agree that it does not need additional differentiation. I mean, I think the way that the one-story addition is differentiated through the lower brickwork is that takes care of that, as well as the hipped roof, which I think works very well. And obviously, the extrusion with the extremely contemporary windows does not require further differentiation. But like I said, the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. And I know that there is some flexibility there. So for example, the one-story addition, taking over that void, that, to my mind, is the most reasonable of the alterations that are proposed. It's getting you extra room. It is minimally destructive of existing historic fabric. And so that is a part of this that I really, and then I do think it remains eligible for the Glendale Register for Architecture, for whatever other register we have. I guess with the exception of the front entrance where nothing is proposed to be altered, there are alterations on every side. There is an enormous increase in the number of windows on that west-facing facade. There is a random enlargement of a window on the side that faces the street. This, and I also like, I appreciate like I mean, this, I appreciate the attention and the care, but I reiterate that this is driven from the inside out. And there has to be, I think, more sense of the exterior and the building and the idea of maintaining as much of the historic fabric as possible. Okay, yes, the rear is not visible. It's not visible because there are hedges on a different property, okay? So it can't be seen. But historic properties are historic 360 degrees around. And I know that street-facing facades, front facades are the most important. But, you know, the extent of these changes is really substantial. And I cannot get behind the two-story addition. I think it is too destructive of distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques, of the spaces and spatial relationships. I noticed the replacement of the windows. Deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. I mean, and also I do not agree that that this work can be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. I think that's true of the one story. I don't think it's true of destroying the exterior at the rear and bumping it out 10 feet. I think the dormer window is a conjectural feature that should not be added. I think if there's a window that's required to, what?
Sorry, conjectural is, that's not a conjectural feature. It's a new feature that's being proposed under a project.
To match a feature that has historic significance on the other side, as though it's designed.
The standards for rehabilitation are intended to allow changes to historic properties that are clearly visible and discernible to the to our professional eyes and to
I
the
agree. I
regular
think a
eyes.
dormer
So
window
I just
is-
don't think that, I don't think that standard applies there. That's,
Okay.
I just couldn't
That
help
is-
myself,
That
I'm
is
sorry.
okay. I think the dormer is too large, and I think it's too much of a match with the other side. I understand. I mean, a window won't need to go there if that second-story addition is not added. If it is, I think it should be something that much more disappears into the side, like a shed roof. I mean, sorry, a shed window, just something that is less prominent. But I just.
That's a possibility, so if your colleagues agree, that could be a condition.
But I also agree with Daniel that I think you lose something when you remove that area over the entrance. So I mean, you know, I think I'm in the minority, but these are just really substantial changes to this property. And I will hopefully, you might agree with me about the dormer. I would support the one-story addition, which, you know, it's 750 square feet, but because it's a two-story volume, it just reads so much larger than that. It's the demolition of 25% of the walls of the property. This just seems too massive. I mean, it just seems like too much change, and I'm sorry that I can't get on board with it. But those are my thoughts.
Okay. Can I ask a couple questions? Do you have a couple questions for her? Okay. Okay. So I tried to take some notes on some of the things you are concerned about, but I want to ask quickly about the kitchen addition. Is there a possibility in your mind, and maybe you haven't thought about this yet, so you may not be able to answer it immediately, but if the kitchen addition weren't 2 stories, if it went out 10 feet, if it had a different type of a situation with the roof and still allowed access, you know, that would be a very huge bedroom at that point, but if it kept a window, well, I guess the windows wouldn't have to be, the window, it wouldn't be all the way that big, sorry. The existing window would maybe, depending on where that roof line comes in, maybe moved, but there could be another window. Is that something that you were thinking could be a possibility?
I think that would be much superior to the 2-story extrusion. And I think, you know, and I will note that there's not a recommendation as part of the staff report. There's like, if the commission finds, you know, and I think that that's an expression of some concern about the significance of, you know,
Staff
just
has
removing-
experience with the commission, and we've done the same thing with DRB on many occasions.
Okay.
Staff supports this project as proposed,
Okay.
but can see other alternatives that I like to present to you to help guide the discussion when I think there are multiple possibilities.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that not demolishing that second-story feature would be a superior alternative.
I have a question, and maybe Jay or where that extrusion is happening with all those windows on the second level. Is that what space is behind all those windows?
It's a double height space over the kitchen, so it's a
just
void,
to
it's
add-
void space.
If you look there, you can see actually it's
Okay,
that
so
it's
it's
open to
just for
below.
the purposes of a double height kitchen. No, there's no other reason to add that extrusion. It's just to add more light for a double height kitchen.
and to make the kitchen bigger, essentially, yeah. Give 10 extra
I
square
mean, in
feet.
terms of where all those windows are happening at
Yeah.
the top, it makes the kitchen big. I mean, it's just adding light. Nobody's going to be using
Right.
that airspace above it. It's just for extra light.
I think it's reflective of the owner's desire to have a certain feel and space, so, which we take seriously, but don't always necessarily agree with. But
Okay.
here there's an argument for it.
So the only reason for all of those windows is to add extra light for a double height kitchen.
You're talking about the north?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
If that's the case, to get back to what Commissioner Yurka is saying, if I'm paraphrasing you correctly, were you contemplating the possibility of not having that extrusion happen at the second level somehow, but just having a 1-level extrusion addition at the bottom?
I mean, my preference would be the infill of the void, because that seems to me.
Which is already happening.
Well, right. But I do think that a 1-story addition at that, the northwest side is better than the two-story with the elimination of the half timbering, the window, the loss of
Mm-hmm.
fabric, and then the addition of that very contemporary looking.
Okay, so right there,
Mm-hmm.
where there's, it appears to be a new chimney, and windows on either side, where that, to the right of the oval
Mm-hmm.
window, opera window, whatever that oval's called, that's all for the purpose, the only reason why we have all those windows at the upper level is to add additional light to the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen. It's not for a bedroom, there's nothing else going on.
That is very true, yes.
And in fact, because that's there, they have to add the dormer above the porch.
Right,
Which
so if-
eliminates the porch roof and it requires the dormer because that bedroom doesn't have a window. That dormer that's there now is in the bathroom.
If I can just jump in real quick, I'm sorry. In considering the design, I thought, let's do a one-story kitchen addition, and that solves the dormer problem, keeps the little cover over the door at the porch, the little porch hood cover. Except for a flat roof, which I'm not sure is a really great design solution here, I cannot picture the geometry of a roof that both deals with the gable, the triangular gable, plus this existing piece, which is a little bump out here. I was really struggling with something that would look good, where this is its own thing, and it kind of fits the piece that's popping through the courtyard there. I'm not saying there isn't a solution. I just couldn't think of one that was better than this. But I do recognize that a one-story solution does solve some of these other problems. So it's
Right, it
win
gets-
some, lose some.
It maintains historic fabric, it gets rid of the dormer, it allows the maintenance of that entryway.
But there's already, I mean, where the existing dormer is, where where Betty Davis's special
Bathtub.
bathroom is, at the upper level, that's already a second story, right?
Here, let me go back to the drawings. I'll show you the floor plan of the second floor.
So then, what we're
here's-
asking, what we would hypothetically be asking is suddenly there's a dangling bathroom with just, and all of a sudden it just becomes one level.
No, there's a room
No,
here,
there's a
Daniel.
room.
Right now, this
Okay.
is a space. This
Okay,
is
got
habitable
it.
space.
And it has a window on the top
That's the second
wall.
floor.
Yes,
This is the
that's
second
Yeah.
floor
Oh,
plan.
okay.
This is existing. This is the 10-foot addition here
Okay.
with the void space. And,
Got it, okay.
yeah, so there's, to me, the issue is, what does the piece look like?
How do you do that?
I had another thought, but I'll just, since we're getting here, a flat roof is not a great Tudor thing, but I'm sure there are plenty of flat roof Tudor additions. To bring light into the space, there could be a monitor of some sort set in within the parapet of the thing, of the
flat.
flat roof. But I wouldn't want that to have a pitched roof on it, because that would just be weird.
Put like little skylights in that flat
A
roof is
little,
what you're talking
little
about, something.
pop-up that has perimeter windows around it that do still bring a higher ceiling and a sense of light and space into the kitchen.
Without opening the public hearing, I'm just going to ask the architect, depending on how you nod or shake your head, we'll open public hearing. Have you ever even at all considered anything that we're discussing? Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing and invite the architect up, please. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We did. We looked at a number of different geometries with Jay, without Jay, so as to be respectful of his time. The geometry of that roof is difficult to deal with in that the end of the gable is very low. The ceilings in the house right now are currently very low. So if you look at the elevations or the 3D, the end of that roof is quite low. So if we were to inset a roof or create a flat roof, we'd end up, can I step over there? Will I be off mic?
Actually,
no, you can't,
well, wait,
sorry.
maybe, let's see if this thing works. This is a new addition to our room.
I can yell.
Hey,
No, we have to be able to
hey,
hear you on
Mr.
the mic.
Microphone's not working.
We have to be able to hear you on the mic.
Okay.
Why don't you walk over there and point to what you're going to talk about and then come back.
Or I can point with the mouse.
You're going to talk about that area right there. Okay, right out that covered porch sort of breezeway thing.
That corner of the house is quite low. So if we
Okay.
were to bring a flat roof out, we would be poking up above that in order to get enough head height to actually have a habitable room. You know, the houses in this era were, you know, traditionally built with quite low ceilings, so the ceilings are around 8 feet. But if we were to, you know, without getting too technical, take out the structure of the roof that we'd have to build in order to get a habitable space that's 8 feet or above, even at minimum 8 feet, we'd end up with a very funky corner there that would look quite
The
messy.
existing roof would come down
You'd end up with
like,
a pitch roof, and then you'd end up with a little hangnail of flat roof that was above it. We've also, you know, bringing around we'll call it the Mansford roof of the infill, continuing that line across, you end up with either a matched geometry that cuts off funny. Ultimately, we were trying to figure out the way to make this addition look the cleanest. We are not tied to a 2-story addition, but this was the way that felt the least messy for the house, given the amount of roof lines and geometries that are already existing prior to our interventions in the property. So this is the cleanest way that we could think to do it while still maintaining an addition at this part of the house.
okay.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about, is that a chimney coming to the kitchen? What is?
It is not a chimney for a fireplace. There would be the exhaust for the kitchen hood that would go in that chimney.
Oh, so that's the stove wall.
Correct. Correct.
And then with this design, was there ever consideration just to bring that second floor all the way across to the wall so that on this north elevation you could put the window for egress and not have to put in a dormer above the porch?
Yes, we did look at that as well. It was with the design
room
team and the
upstairs
owners.
is like huge. It
And
makes
you
a
end
very
up with
weird
just a very long
Yeah.
bowling alley room, so it was just kind of an awkward shape, but that's certainly an option. This felt like we gained not only some
Yeah.
beautiful light in the kitchen, also didn't need to bring that floor plate across, but that was definitely a consideration. It's gone through a number of iterations in the plan
Yeah.
over the last year. I also have additional 3D if the commission does want to see it. You know, it's not part of the presentation, but I have it on the iPad.
Okay. That's just of this current design?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
think we have a pretty
Not-
good understanding of this. I personally feel like I have a pretty good understanding of this design. Okay. So,
I have a question. So I have a quick question. So where relative to where the existing dormer is, where does the upper level bedroom north wall end?
On the flat face,
So yeah, okay, I got that. I see
full
that.
10 feet.
it's the 10 feet of the addition plus or minus 8 feet to where the dormer starts.
So that right where your arrow is right now, that's the
That's about
addition?
8 feet.
That's the addition, right?
That with the X through it is the addition.
Yeah,
That's
that's
correct.
the
That's the
addition.
double height space looking down
The
into
bathroom, I see the bathroom dormer, and then there's a bedroom. And so I'm a little unclear. So then there's a bedroom there now. It was presumably hers with her bathroom. Why are you?
Hers
why
was
are you-
downstairs.
What's that?
Hers was
Oh,
downstairs.
hers
This
was
was a
downstairs.
guest
That's
room.
right.
Yeah, her
So-
bedroom has the old fireplace.
So
This
then
is
what,
really-
that was a guest bedroom of some kind or whatever. And then it has and you just did a ceiling, like a YMCA type thing.
No, I was praying, but yes.
Praying that this ends soon. So so the reason for that second dormer is to provide a little more head space in that upper bedroom. Is that right?
That's correct.
And required light and air in a bedroom.
Light. Okay.
Jay, and this might not be necessary on this particular drawing that we're looking at. I don't see a closet in that room. Isn't a closet required for a room to technically be considered a bedroom?
There was not a closet
That's
there
in
existing.
multifamily, not for single family. So
A single-family room
We
doesn't
don't-
have
we
to have
don't
a... Well,
care.
in real estate, I can tell you right now, if a room doesn't have a closet, an appraiser will not count it as a bedroom.
I got it, but
It is
yeah,
not currently in these
it's
architectural
for-
plans,
for
but
multifamily, we have parking issues when something's a bedroom
Yeah.
or not. So,
Well-
but for single family, someone could have 10 armoire and we don't care.
Okay. From a real estate standpoint, that's not technically a bedroom the way it's presently laid out, unless there's maybe a closet
It
somewhere that's
seems
not on the
fixable.
drawing.
it will have a closet.
It will have a closet.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I guess where I was going with that
This whole,
was
the weird bunk bed space could be a whole dressing room. This space is very strange, so.
where I was going with that was if this isn't technically a bedroom, we don't have to worry about the dormer, because wouldn't necessarily need to be egress if it wasn't technically a bedroom, right?
Well, we'd have to talk to building and safety about that, but
All right.
since they're proposing it as a
Would
bedroom.
need egress as a habitable room that could be used as a bedroom. If it was an office, a study, if it had no bed in it, it would still be considered a habitable room that needs egress on the second floor.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
But which it has now.
Which it
because
has
of the-
existing now because of the north wall. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way we can negotiate out the dormer and still keep some kind of a 2-story addition. So
The other thing about the dormer is that in order to bring light,
yes,
but we felt that it was a much more appropriate addition than skylights.
Yes.
Which I didn't want quite to add to this roof.
Yeah, with those tile roof thing and everything, it could be very challenging. All right.
But you'd have light, I mean, there'd be light through the existing window.
The existing window's in the bathroom.
If the addition weren't
Oh,
built,
right, if the
yeah.
addition weren't
Yeah,
there, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it is north
Yeah.
facing, but yes,
Right.
it does get some ambient light.
Jay, did you mention you had other proposals or ideas about this, or was yours just the monitor window one?
In the staff report, I just mentioned the possibility of a 1-story, and that's where I had trouble with the roof geometry, which Aaron has
Yeah.
corroborated. The monitor is something that came to me later, and I just threw it out there because that's what I do sometimes.
I think we can safely close the public hearing again. Thank you, Aaron. So, Catherine, back to some of your other concerns. You mentioned that every facade has some kind of a modification to it. In some cases, it's removing something that isn't appropriate, which is a good thing.
Oh, yeah, oh.
Obviously,
No, that-
obviously, I know
yeah.
you agree with that.
It's just that there's so many window enlargements.
You said so many window enlargements. Jay, can you point out where the window enlargements are? I know that we have some window additions in the addition. I don't remember seeing anything that specifically said a
Front
window.
facade, no window changes. West facade, a window shape is being changed, so a new window in the location of an existing window slightly widened. This door is being widened perhaps a foot or a little less. This window is a new window being cut into the brick. This window is a new steel sash window in an existing opening. So this is the west facade.
So that one you're pointing out right now doesn't change size. It just changes the window itself.
Existing opening, new sash. And Aaron and the owner, Ben, didn't tell me that they were doing that to match, but I'm presuming that that's why, which makes sense to me. And to me, all parts of buildings will get replaced over time. And I know these aren't necessarily deteriorated, and I hear you on that. But I also know that in Glendale, we want to, I'm not even going to say it.
So, Jake, can you go back to that
Yeah.
slide? So you've said that's the west side, but that's the east side.
Sorry, east
Okay.
facade, yeah.
Um,
On
may-
the
okay.
west facade, and this area, and the architect and I discussed this, building and safety, we don't have structural drawings yet. There's very little shear value on this wall that could lead to either steel reinforcement on the interior that we wouldn't have any purview over, or some modest changes to the kind of extent of window across this area. But right now, these doors are being replaced in kind in their existing openings. The 2 flanking windows of the chimney are being replaced in kind, existing openings. This door, I believe, is being replaced in its existing opening, but the porch hood is going away, presumably because it conflicts with the dormer. That would just look weird to have both. 2 new openings here with steel sash to match the others, and then this configuration to the left. So one opening, this window's in its existing opening, and then this window straddles the addition in the existing, and then obviously this is new in the addition. So that's the west facade. And then at the north, the change, besides the additions, which are obvious, is that this window, which is in the master bedroom, is being widened, and that corresponds to this this door plus these 2 windows are part of the master suite, I guess. Primary, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Not master, primary.
Primary, yes.
Yeah.
The window just right to the right, nope, just to that one. That window there, what is in, do you know offhand, or do I need to
Oh,
ask
we
the
have the
applicants what
drawings, I
that
can't
window is?
remember, but that's the existing, that's the bathroom over the new Betty Davis tub. So presumably, they wanted to have a higher sill height there for privacy, but I don't want to speak for them.
Go back to the, I think it's the opposite of that. Isn't the window
Or am I?
getting made taller?
It's the sill is being raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's already it's a larger window and it's being
Yeah,
made
there's
smaller.
a
Got it,
lower
got it,
sill
got it.
existing, being raised. The tub is right here, so I think it's for standard bathroom reasons. Right now, this area is the kitchen, so the kitchen's being flipped to the other side of the house. Originally, they wanted the kitchen here, and that's where we ran into problems with the proposal, and that's why the whole floor plan is flipped around.
Visible and all that, more visible.
I have a real quick question since we have the slab. What's the covering of that new landing?
It's open to the sky. The landing is
I mean,
existing.
the floor material.
Oh, I think it's wood.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Wood,
like a
okay.
deck. It's not original, but there was something there because the doors are there. And It is? Really? So the brick piers are the same brick as the house? I thought it was different. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
So do you see why I have concerns about the
Yeah.
extent of the?
Sure, I do, but I think, yes, I do. I saw your concerns in the beginning, but I'm just trying to properly balance them. You know, I mean, I'm thinking about the additions, and I'm thinking about what they're doing here. I'm thinking back on what we saw at the last meeting with that Artavine house, where there was one glaring pop-up in the middle of a roof. Now, granted, that was a smaller house. You know, it was it's of a different character, but I feel like even though there's a big change in the square footage, I think this still reads as a Tudor house. I think this still reads as Betty Davis's house. I don't think the square footage of her house is the specific square footage of her house is a character defining feature of historic significance.
No.
So changing that square footage is, you know, neither here nor there if it becomes bigger. Where I think differently than I did last time I brought this up when we were talking was it seems like a little bit much that they want so much light in the kitchen and they're doing all these windows just for extra light in the kitchen. It would be nice to maybe explore some other options related to that. But I also understand the circumstances around roof geometry. Maybe it's something, I'm not an expert in the structural and engineering part and the roof geometry part, but maybe it's something that could be looked at a little bit more. But on the whole,
A one-story addition?
To create a one-story addition?
look at it. Maybe it could be contemplated
You're
more.
reviewing a proposal, so you have to tell us. You can't say, look at it and then come back
So,
to
well,
us.
I mean, that's what I'm telling,
Consideration?
we could maybe, one possibility would be to send this back for exploration of a one-story addition at the kitchen and a new contemplation around that dormer to see if it really needs to be there relative to what the use is. But with all that said, I also understand that there's been so much effort made already. I may support the idea of having this looked at and brought back again if if it can be. But maybe that's something that we could entertain. But with that said, I could also see the efforts that have been made thus far, and I find them quite good.
If I can just say, rarely, sometimes perhaps, but no single window shape or no single window is a character-defining feature. The character-defining feature of this house are multi-light steel casement windows. The number of windows, I understand Kathy's concern. And perhaps that could be reduced at the kitchen to some degree, but people do like bright kitchens. But I did want to remind the commission that first, return for redesign isn't something that you should take lightly because it adds more costs. There's another application fee. It's a brand new application that gets processed from the beginning, so it's going to add several months more to the project.
Okay.
So if you were inclined to think this was okay, it's okay to vote return for redesign, but there are consequences to the owners that you should just at least be aware of. The other thing I wanted to say is by code, a project does not have to meet the Secretary's standards fully, and they're so subject to interpretation. By fully, it's like everything is kind of, but if you as a commission believe this house will still remain eligible for the Glendale Register after completion as proposed or as modified by conditions, so again, that's just planting that in your head. It doesn't mean much, but it may help. So.
Okay, thank you, Jay. So with that in mind, I do believe this would be eligible. I would still like to see something done with the one remaining dormer, the one existing dormer,
We're hooked on that thing.
I'm totally hooked on that dormer, and that the vinyl window be taken care of.
Yeah, and I believe the proposal shows a steel window there. I think Aaron
good.
said he wanted to do that. When you say take care of it, are you talking about the texture or the
want it to look like what it looks like in the rendering?
I can't find a photo of it, unfortunately.
Oh, no, there is one.
Is there a photo
Found one?
that shows it?
You mean of the
Existing.
Existing?
Oh, here we go. Okay, so here we
it's
go.
right there.
Oh, yeah.
It's right there. So
So
I think that, and I think somebody in the commission mentioned that when that vinyl window went in, maybe the dormer got fiddled with.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been all just rotted.
it does look like stucco that doesn't match the stucco
The
on the rest of
stucco's
the house.
newer, so then I, as a condition, I would definitely propose to make that dormer compatible with the Tudor Revival design system seen
that-
elsewhere upon the
To that
property.
end, would the dormer shown on, whoops, wrong way. Would the dormer shown on the drawings, there it is. Here, thank you, meet your,
Yes.
and this is kind of what I was thinking when I thought about getting rid of these diagonals and maybe just having two verticals on the long facade. But you don't seem to care about that, but
no.
this simpler geometry seems to work there.
It's fine.
I actually agree with you about eliminating the busier half timbering.
I'm sorry,
Oh, the more elaborate half timbering.
on the lower level?
I think that is part of differentiating it.
It's too matchy for you?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
And would that be simply by getting rid of the diagonals and keeping the
I guess, yeah.
linear?
There you getting some big words there.
Reduce timbering, okay.
You're taking some notes for
I'm
us?
glad to keep you guys amused, Mr. Doom.
Wondering how you gotta put two matchy in your report.
Okay, so you're taking some notes, Jay?
I do that, yeah.
Like on...
I haven't done as well with the full discussion as I sometimes
It's okay,
do.
but we're talking about potential conditions. So what do you have so far?
I have restore or fix Daniel's dormer, we'll call it,
We'd like a plaque made.
to make it look like it does in this rendering with some additional half timbering and a steel casement window. I don't have too many others.
Half timbering, which we just discussed. The removal of some of the half timbering, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, of course. So, yeah, I put stars next to all my conditions, and I forgot to star that one. And then we can go back also to the staff recommended
Yes.
conditions.
I actually wanted to propose another condition, and I don't know what you all think about it before I vote no, but is the removal of the chimney at the extrusion. I just find that very strange to add
I'm
a
sorry,
chimney
we
feature.
have a call from a lady, but the public forum has ended.
I'll reopen it.
But if you want to reopen it, it's
Yes,
your discretion. so.
Yes, I will open the public hearing for our caller.
Kathy, finish her thought.
We'll come
since
back.
this was a,
Oh, sorry. We will come
straight
back. Yes, we'll open the public
so-
hearing in just a moment.
So my condition would be to remove the chimney from, because it just seems bizarre to throw in an extra chimney there. I mean, we've talked about the kind of, I can't remember the competition of the roofs. I think we're going to do a battle of the chimneys, and it just doesn't seem appropriate to me
And
there.
if I could, I recommended the same thing, and the architect raised the issue that you have to vent your kitchen.
Yeah, we have a vent.
Right. As long as everyone's aware that the vent's either going to poke through the wall or go up to the ridge or angle toward the roof line.
Yeah.
Through the flat part of the roof, so.
Okay, can you,
Okay, we'll do the caller first.
yes, I'd like to open the public hearing for our caller.
All right.
Please, welcome to the program. Please state your name
Hold
for
on,
the
they're not
record.
here yet, so.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, are you there? Caller, are you there? Hello? I don't have a name for the caller. Can you hear us?
We don't hear you.
Shanaz, are they still there? Here we go. There we go. Can you hear me? You're with the Historic Preservation Commission. Please tell us your name and, all right, can you hear me? Okay. Hello. Okay, we'll just say, assuming the caller is watching this on television, please call back because we can't find you.
And we'd love to have you speak this evening, so please give us a call back.
Of course you would.
All right. Okay, well, I'm going to drop the caller, and that may signal them to come back.
Okay.
So,
Any other comments aside from the chimney?
Oh, no, what did other people think about?
Oh, can you pull up that elevation again, Jay? That shows the
which one?
chimney, the new
Chimney,
chimney,
yeah.
that north elevation?
here you go.
So with that, without the okay, well, we don't want it to
So
be a lot of glass.
suddenly
depending on what
without
they
the
did
It was
chimney,
stucco, I think.
yeah, suddenly without the chimney, you're changing the whole composition of that elevation, which could, maybe that allows for a new arrangement of the windows that's a little more compatible, not so contemporaneous, especially at the top. But if you just strip that chimney and left everything else there, it'd be kind of bizarre too. You would have just this funny little blank vertical running up the
not too
whole
different than what's above it, what's existing.
When you just
With
have brick.
more windows.
stucco. Wouldn't you just have you would have a blind stucco
stucco.
bay between the window bays, and I think that would look suddenly it would look much more awkward than it does now. I mean, it certainly wouldn't look Tudor at all, and it would
You
be
could add some half timbering and.
kind of lost.
Or more
So they would
windows.
have to redesign that. They would have to redesign that projection and the fenestration on that projection.
Okay, I'd like to open the public here. Did you want to say something else, Aaron? Just agreeing, okay.
Okay with that condition.
Okay, okay.
I like the chimney.
Okay, so they're okay with the condition, though it sounds like there's a preference to keep it. Have we gotten our caller back?
No.
Okay, we'll give you another couple of minutes to call caller person. We will continue our deliberations. Okay, so anything else aside from the chimney?
No.
Okay.
Okay, just to vamp for time, we're going to fix the existing dormer to match the, or this is condition, we haven't voted on them yet, but condition proposed to fix the existing dormer, condition proposed to reduce the half timbering at the one-story portion of the addition, condition proposed to get rid of the chimney and adjust however needed the area above. And let me go back to the staff report, just make sure that captures everything that you had seen before.
Yeah, I do have a question really quickly. If that chimney's gone, then what's there in terms of a flue?
Just an exhaust pipe.
It can come out the back,
It would
or
be
it
an
goes
exhaust that
up?
would run up through the
It's
wall.
going to be a metal exhaust pipe.
No, it would run through the wall, but it would have to vent somewhere, so it would either vent horizontally at the wall or it would vent somewhere at the roof level.
So what we're asking them to do, if they get rid of that chimney, there's just going to be nothing up the middle of that, right? And then there's
They'd
going to
have
be
to kinda
something
change-
behind the wall, huh?
Yeah, they kind of probably want to change the window layout at that point, but yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. So at what point so are we asking them as one of the conditions to redesign the window layout? Because if the chimney is going to be gone, I mean, I think the chimney seems a little bit much, but I don't hate it. You know, I mean, in my mind, I'm fine with it staying, because right now this composition's resolved. The moment, if you get rid of that chimney, you have to rethink that whole composition. And that to me seems like we talked about this not coming back. That to me seems like a lot more work.
Yeah, and it would probably,
Well, that's an easy thing for us to review at staff level, one way or the other. If you want the chimney gone, I see a very viable solution to kind of put some half timbering on the sides of the window. Maybe they get narrowed a little bit. Possibly a horizontal somewhere at this point, sort of like there's this datum line across the top of these windows with the horizontal. But there's no datum line on the gable triangles, so we'd figure that out. So that's a possibility. I think the main issue is considering, and this is the back of the house, as we've said, are you guys okay with a vent exposed either here or here at the wall, or way up here that pops out of the roof?
No.
If it's just, you mean, when you say exposed, do you mean like a projecting vent or just a?
No, the flue would be
Fluid,
within the
just the-
wall. The
just
flue
the
would be in the wall one way or
cap.
the other. There would either be something coming out of the roof, which would disrupt the clay tile, and they'd have to flash and deal with that. There are also wall vents for kitchen hoods. Usually not sightly. They usually have grease dripping down the wall at some point. So those are just things to consider.
Yeah, I'm fine with the chimney.
yeah. I mean, it's Tudorish. Lots of chimneys on Tudor homes sometimes. They're in many different rooms.
Okay, so we have a majority that's fine with the chimney, so we'll scratch that one. Everyone still wants to reduce the half timbering, deal with the existing dormer.
And going back to the staff report,
Okay, so we had,
it doesn't sound like there's, on the west wall, much attempt to differentiate in the current design, based on what the architect said.
I heard that we could eliminate that staff. We will probably eliminate all of the staff conditions, especially since they had the if-then kind of structure.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I guess,
But if you want to differentiate at the brick, one of my thoughts was it doesn't have to be like a reglet or a metal channel. When brick turns a corner, it's usually laced together like this at the corner. It could be as subtle as a change in brick, where the architect mentioned feathering it in, which would be more of a seamless coursing.
You're talking about the west side, so not the elevation that we're
Yes,
seeing now.
I'm sorry, I'm back.
I have a suggestion for differentiating it, which is getting
Eliminate
rid
it.
of those new windows that are being added.
Okay.
Right
I would like for you, I would like to hear what you think what your preferred window layout would be there, Catherine. I am curious about that, because that is a condition we can make. Is there a solution there that works for you?
I think not adding new windows and sort of having a bank of windows
So
at the
from
brick.
what you're suggesting is from that door all the way back, there are no windows?
There's one window that exists on the side. There are a pair of windows that exist on the
Jake, can you go back to
side.
the elevation, please?
I just wanted to share the kitchen layout so you can have that in your head as you're considering this. This is the 3 windows, kitchen sink centered on the larger window in the center.
Okay.
And
Okay.
So there are existing windows on either side of the chimney, and one way that west side gets differentiated is by the addition of new windows.
Okay.
If the brick stays in place.
All right, so in your mind, what would your acceptable alternative be?
I would not add the windows between the door and the window at the chimney.
could you, I'm sorry, these here or these here?
Which here?
Left of the door or right of the door?
To the right of the door.
Yeah, to the right of the door, the one.
Okay, and
'cause
just
the
to be
others are
fair,
being
just to be
added as part
fair,
of the
because, a rehabilitation does involve or moving interior uses, and so this area, I believe, is a dining room? This is the den. Isabel fireplace. These two windows exist. These two don't. It would be a rather strange room to have windows on one side on the diagonal, but I understand where you're coming from.
Okay, maybe
So-
we could cut it down to one window instead of two new windows. Maybe there's one window in that space.
That would be better, I think. I mean, like I've said, I think the changes are really excessive.
So if we eliminated the center window here, I think the room would still have a certain balance of windows that made sense. Two of the original openings would be there. This would also balance with the other side of the door, which I think is in the existing condition. Sorry, this is such a pain. Oh, no, these are existing windows here that are just getting new sash, so it would create this pairing of
So really, there's
windows.
only one new window between the chimney and the door.
Right of the door, it's the middle window you're talking about.
That's the only new window.
Left of the chimney, there's 3 windows, you're saying left and right.
Well, if for the den, remove the center window. For the kitchen, I haven't heard them talk about
That's the new addition, right?
Well, half of it
half
is.
and half, yeah.
Yeah.
So
The new
so
addition,
this is okay here.
yeah.
Okay.
'Cause
So
that one
this
window-
window here would go away.
I think
And
that's better. It's
that
just-
seems,
Yeah, it's a lot of windows, you're right.
you have an
Makes sense.
architect raising his hand.
Oh, Aaron, please come to the podium. We're going to open the public hearing.
There was some preliminary talks with the structural engineer that they would also like to reduce some of the sizes of windows here. So I think that we're open to that condition where right now there's a new window that's right in the middle of where the addition and the existing house are. That kind of splits that line. Our thought was potentially those 3 windows where Jay's cursor is right now ends up becoming 2 windows splitting around that line, and potentially then whatever the size of that windows is, flipping that, matching it around the double door. So there would only be 2 windows where you were talking about,
either side.
Commissioner Yurka, and then there would be 2 windows to the left of the double doors, 2 windows to the right of the double doors.
If you have 2 windows straddling the line,
Correct.
whoever's doing dishes or standing at the sink is gonna, their eyes are gonna go like that. So
Sink.
just keep that in mind. So,
We'll move
Yeah.
this thing.
yeah.
So just wanted to put that out there.
Okay,
That
so you, at this point, you seem okay with that proposal, that condition? Okay.
That's a good compromise.
I think I'm done. You're good? Oh, except the slate.
Oh, right. So, yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like they are very interested. I mean, we can make it, at this point, I think it's a consideration because we can't really predict exactly what's out in the world.
Oh, but
Right.
I don't think there should be a slate.
No, I understand. Yes.
That's fine.
And I
Okay,
don't,
yeah.
yes, and I don't think they do either. I think
And if they came back to us with that, I think I already told them we'd come back here, unless you said tonight that it was okay. But since you're saying it's not okay, and I agree, people still make clay tiles, not so much that look like this though. They usually have ridges on the sides and different
Aaron, you
things.
can come forward, please.
we do want to keep the existing roof in the event that it is not salvageable once we take portions of it off to repair the waterproofing underneath. Can we get a recommendation from the commission on what to do if not slate, so that we don't need to, potentially come back to the commission?
So is the waterproofing an issue because some of it is concreted in?
Yes, it is
So
old
ordinarily
and
you
it's
would pull it
cracked.
off and-
We
okay.
need to pull off the majority of the tiles to repair.
On the whole house?
I don't know exactly which locations.
about
I
it.
knew there were leaks in the roof. I don't, with respect, know exactly where they were. The contractor said we do need to pull some off in areas that are not part of the addition, just to repair generally. If they're not salvageable, which again, we hope they are, because we do want to keep them, can we get a recommendation from the commission on what, if not slate, to use? I guess that's a question, but it would be great so that we don't have to come back, again, just on roof material.
Have that conversation now. It's tough.
Potentially.
It's such a unique material.
Or can that be something that we review before installing, before purchasing with staff level to look at options to show that we did our due diligence?
I feel like it has to be possible to find someone to make tiles that will match. Am I crazy?
Clay is easy and
Is clay.
cheap to make,
Yeah.
but I can't speak to what it would really cost.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making a unique product
There
like
are
that,
there are flat clay tile roofs
$5 a
that
tile. Seems
look
crazy.
a little more contemporary, that interlock. These are a very odd in the world of clay shape. So again, we want to make our best efforts to replace our mirrors.
Who's going to be, presumably, like when they go to take these clay tiles off the concrete to fix the waterproofing, is that done by a contractor? And do we know if there's ways? Are there like a multitude of are there possibly ways, like if you take a conservator's approach, I know they use different solutions, different materials that they may not use every day to remove roof tile from concrete. Is there something out there where the concrete could be sort of, where the roof tile could be removed from the concrete? Maybe it dissolves the concrete. I don't know. That sounds like a strong chemical.
That would just, yeah, that.
Off the
But I'm
tile.
trying to
That
think of a
doesn't
way. I'm wondering, like, if because a lot of times when people go get a contractor, the contractor just does the contractor thing. But I'm wondering if there's any precedent that you know of, Jay, that you would know of like a contractor who can do this extremely sensitively, and we know that the tiles can be kept.
Even good roofers taking regular barrel Spanish tile off, there's a certain percentage of loss no matter what. It's a difficult thing to do. But we can, I know of people who know much more than I do about stuff like this. I could help them explore options, see what's out there. There's Ludovici tile.
Okay.
Does a lot of
And then
interesting
on the-
tile.
That's what I was thinking.
On the horse stable, is that concreted in also?
Not to the degree that the main house is. It is
So-
more traditionally installed and should be easier to
So
remove.
if you have tile break on the main house, you could possibly use the tile from the horse stable and just harvest, I think was your word.
Yeah.
That was my word. I
Cannibalize
apologize.
from the, but the horse stable may come in handy for that use too, since it's a
Right.
1999 building and you don't have a bunch of horses.
Well, as everyone has said, the 99 building has clay tile that's close to the house, and you know who the architect of that was? So-
Still around.
So we may be able to solve it more easily than it sounds like.
Then we'd need to
here.
replace the tile on the.
Right, so maybe the stable suddenly becomes a slate roof, because you can harvest all of those tiles. Ugh, whatever.
Yeah.
We're not going to go, I appreciate you wanting to have that answer now. I'm not sure that we
I
can
think
totally
we could
promise
leave
you.
it open as
Yeah.
a potential condition for a vote if the commission is open to slate or not. And if not, then we'll just work really hard to find the right solution. Believe it or not, did you close the hearing or is it still open because we have a caller?
Public hearing is still open.
Let's go to the caller. I believe the name is Ms. Hart. Ms. Hart, are you there? This is the Historic Preservation Commission. Ms. Hart, are you there? Ms. Hart, you're on the air.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you now. Please,
I'm gonna
thank you
turn
for
the volume
calling.
up.
Please state your name for the record, and I'll let you know that you have 3 minutes.
Yes, sorry, I'm going to mute the TV because I hear a delay.
Oh,
My
yes.
name is Anya
Turn your
Hart.
TV down.
Yeah, I muted it. Thank you. Sorry. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm calling. I would like to ask the commission members to address the charge of the commission, historical preservation. I hope you can appeal to your knowledge base to refer to architectural history in place of personal preferences and personal whims. My understanding from the commission, from what I've seen so far, is that the commission members are not part of the design team, and I hope that they can keep that in mind and not incur added expenses to the Glendale taxpayers and to the residents trying to do the renovation. Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Is there a question?
No, we're just moving on. Okay, if the commission does not accept the proposed extruded portion of the addition, a one-story addition with a flat pastry. Okay. How does everyone feel with the conditions we've talked about versus what we have as considerations in the report? Jay said he's basically scrapping the consideration and conditions in the report, so let's make sure we're okay with that before he does that. Yes. Okay, I think we've discussed everything. So, Jay, would you read back the conditions really quickly so that someone, if so inclined, can make a
Currently
motion?
recommended conditions are fix restore the, or revise the dormer that we've been, the existing dormer, that won't be the official, but revise the existing dormer to match the rendering with half timbering and steel, and make sure that the stucco matches other stucco. Oh, this gets too loud now. Stucco shall match the existing stucco on the house. We are going to reduce the amount of half timbering on the one-story portion of the addition by removing the diagonals, but allowing the other portions to remain. I believe, well, kitchen chimney, I don't know if have a full consensus, but I think we're not going to remove the chimney. And then we have the windows, we'll have to leave a little open-ended pending the structure. Oh, sorry. Oh, shit.
Shoot.
Yeah, that's on air. Whoops. I ended the whole meeting instead of just turning off the timer, so.
We're done.
Yeah, that's it.
Come back next month.
I'm fired. See ya. In terms of the windows, we're going to remove the center window from the den area. And then pending the structural engineer's report, we're going to probably, somehow reduce the linear footage of windows on the north side of the kitchen area.
Great,
But still have windows there.
great. That's it, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Based on hearing those, would anyone like to?
I would like to move to adopt the staff recommendations. No, how would we phrase that? Conditions you just imposed?
Approve the project.
Approve the project.
The project with conditions so outlined, that we discussed.
That Jay
As
just
stated
read.
by staff.
That
Yeah.
Jay read back.
Right?
So it's not in the report, but we've since adopted through the discussion.
Yes.
Right. You're approving the design as proposed with the additional conditions.
Okay.
I second.
Carry on.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Yurka,
No.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Commissioner Doom,
Yes.
Chair Crignani.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, let's
And that
see
was, but here
where
we
we
are.
are on the agenda.
It's long.
Thank you, applicant and architect, for your time this evening. Jay, item number 8, do we have any Community Development Department updates?
Yeah, we do, because as you noted, Casey Conley has left us.
What?
She has moved on to the city of West Hollywood, doing similar to what she was doing here, planning and preservation work. And we're going to miss Casey. She
Yes,
did a
we
lot
are,
of good
Casey.
stuff.
I'm sure you're
And,
watching.
she was very valuable, so hopefully she's watching, but I doubt it. But I'll let her know that, and if anyone wants to say anything, that's.
What's her new position there? Is it the same thing she did here? Is she?
Well, it's funny, she had just gotten promoted to planner here. She'd been an assistant planner. I always get, yeah, she was an associate planner, excuse me. And her position in West Hollywood is associate planner. But just so the world knows, some cities have better salaries than others, regardless of your job description or job title. So,
Is there any plan to look?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna have someone new come.
Soon?
Hired or
Hired, yeah.
Soon?
already?
No, not already, but this is fresh news.
Can't replace her that fast.
We're going to have
Yeah,
a new, we're
search.
going to have a new position.
Okay, that's, yeah, sorry.
We tend to fill positions as they leave, so, as people leave, so.
Okay, good. Great.
And yeah, that's all the update I have for you, so.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Well, with that, at 8:13,
Adjourn the meeting in honor of Casey.
yes, she is still alive, but in honor of Casey, because we loved her. I adjourn the meeting. We will see you next month.
Conditions were first.
Thank